IB Nation, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Happy Wednesday. You guys know what that means. It is buy, sell, hold. So what that means, if you are, by chance, a first-time listener today, buy, sell, hold is something that we like to do for our premium message boards members. You can see it down there scrolling at the bottom of the screen, boards.irishbreakdown.com. Basically what happens, our guy Salty, he puts together a thread on the premium message boards in the Champions Lounge. And what you guys are supposed to do is you pose a scenario where Brian and I will discuss it. We decide whether at the end of the discussion, we will either buy it, sell it, or hold the premise. Now, to make this clear, this is not a free-for-all mailbag. That comes on Friday. So if by chance you didn't get your buy, sell, hold submission in time before the start of the show, you can always put in a super chat and we'll answer the buy, sell, hold, but this is not a traditional mailbag. So if you just have normal questions, I would either save that for tomorrow when we do a mailbag at the end of tomorrow's show, or you can always save it for Friday, for the Friday free-for-all mailbag. But, Brian, we have a lot of good submissions today, pretty par for the course as to what we're used to. And I'm ready to dive into it, man. There's a lot of stuff we got to get to today.
Yeah, so we're going to do things a little bit different today because normally – we kick off, we allow Salty to kind of start things off because he puts it on there. But we had talked about maybe doing a segment at the beginning of the show and then diving into the buy, sell, hold. But instead, I kind of asked for it and got a buy, sell, hold about Kirk Signetti's comments that were made this past week because I want to address them. And we're going to kind of do that. And that's going to be a longer discussion at the very beginning that we'll dive into, and then we'll get into the rest because I do think this is a very interesting take that says a lot about journalism. It says a lot about how we consume information, and also his comments say a lot about the state of college football. And so we will start off with that just so everybody understands kind of how this is going to go. So Salty, all due respect, you'll get the first of the non-Signetti questions, but I did want to bring this up, Trev, and have a little bit of a conversation about this before we get into the rest of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. So kicking us off is RamCray75. Buy, sell, hold. Signetti's comments are foreshadowing an attempt to get Notre Dame into the Big Ten by 2026 in time for the new playoff format. He goes on to say, I'm not saying Notre Dame will join, but this is the first step towards the Big Ten making the pitch.
Yeah, I'm gonna sell this part, and then I'm gonna dive into what I think is really going on here, and a lot of different things. First of all, no, this is not any kind of attempt by the Big Ten to get Notre Dame into their league. Do I think the Big Ten is making attempts to get Notre Dame into the league? Of course. Do I think that there are times when coaches are sort of used as pawns to do that? Of course. This isn't it, because I don't think that's what Kurt Signetti is trying to do here. And I'll be honest with you. When I read his comments and engaged with people on it, I was like, well, man, this is going to be one where I'm going to kind of rip him, because I'll be honest, I think Kurt Signetti is a heck of a football coach. I don't personally like Kurt Signetti a whole lot. Like, I just think he comes across as very much of that personality that I don't care for. There's arrogance, and then you're just kind of a D. You know what I mean? Like, you're just kind of a PRICK. I wouldn't hang around you, but yeah, I think you're a heck of a football coach. And so but it's going to be him just kind of whining it. And there's a little bit to that, Trev. But what's funny is the manner in which people are responding to this is so petty, childish, and not actually engaging what Kurt Signetti said. And I've seen people say, like, Kurt Signetti said that Notre Dame has a $40 million payroll. That's not at all what he said. What's happening right now is we're all responding to what we're being told Kurt Signetti said. We're engaging in a conversation based on what we're being told Kurt Signetti said, because we have a huge problem in our country right now, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant, where we just read freaking headlines, or we read other people's quick Twitter responses to what someone said and don't actually read what the person said. Kurt Signetti never said Notre Dame is a team with a $40 million payroll. This is what he said in the article. He said, so is he saying... He said, I think our little pot of gold is pretty nice, but we're not at 40 million or 30 million or even 25 million. He gets asked, do you think the top of the market is 40 million? He goes, right now, I would say yes. And then later he talks about other schools. He says, if you want to be the best, you've got to be able to compete against the best. Right now, I understand that is Oregon, Ohio State, Texas.
Texas Tech because of their oil money. I think Notre Dame is up there pretty good right now, and Miami, of course. So my response is, what did he say that's wrong? We literally just had another article come out this past week saying Texas is around $40 million for the payroll that they're paying for their football team. So why is he not allowed to say this is a fact? Trev, you like to always say, let's call a spade a spade. Well, let's call a spade a spade. Is he not spending a lot of money on his program? Did Notre Dame not spend a lot of money on keeping their current players at Notre Dame? Did LSU not spend a lot of money this past offseason, including this spring, to get players? Did Ohio State not spend a lot of money last year to get Caleb Downs and Quinshon Judkins and to keep their players from going pro? Yes, they did. So what's wrong with him saying that? What's wrong with him saying, like, this can't work? This can't last. This imbalance of these schools have this kind of money and they can do this, and it's going to create a system where we can't compete with that. Is he wrong? Is he wrong? No, he's not wrong. And then the silly CBS writer's like, this is way more than what a basketball team is, 10 million. Yeah, it's because there's way more players, numbnuts. There's 15 basketball players on a team. There's 85 to over 100 football players on a team. So, yeah, you're going to have more money. And if you actually look at, if 10 million is the top for a team that's got 15 players and 40 million is the top for a team that's got 100 players, guess what? Basketball players are making a lot more money individually than football players. That's what that means. But the reality is there's too many people writing articles based on what they're being told he said and taking it in this, like, I'm in my feelings. Let me cry because my team got called out. He's not calling Texas Tech out. But I saw some childish Texas Tech writer talk about how, Kurt Signetti's in his feelings. That's not what he said. He's not saying these schools are wrong. They shouldn't be doing this. He's saying this system is broken. And is that not what we say all the time? Like, every fan base will say the system's broken, the system's broken. But if somebody points out how your team is part of the team benefiting from, oh, hold on a second, you're just a crybaby. You can't have it both ways. You can't say the system is broken, but then say, well, my team's not doing this, my team's not doing this, my team's not doing this. I'm going to speak specifically to the Notre Dame aspect of it here in a second. But we have to be able to say, hey, we can't cry about how the system's broken and how we don't like this and we don't like that and we don't like that. But when a coach who we happen to not like says what we want to say, we then will go away from what we always say and criticize what he said, which we agree with, because we don't like him. That is low IQ, and we're better than that. We should be better than that. So I had somebody on a message board yesterday say, Kurt Signetti's an overrated coach. He's never been a top 25 team. You're just repeating what somebody else told you. This guy was at James Madison. They were an FCS team. They won a national title and went to the semifinals twice. He then jumps directly to FBS. And in 2 years, as an FBS team, went 19-4. Then he went to Indiana. Do you know how many? Indiana's been playing football since the 1800s. From the 1800s till 2023, do you know how many 10-win seasons Indiana had in their history, Trevor? 0. This guy won 11 games in year one, and we're going to say he's overrated because he didn't beat a ranked team? It's freaking Indiana. I don't care if Michigan was 2-10. You beat Michigan. You beat Nebraska by almost a half a hundo. It's Indiana. They won 10 games in the 3 years before he arrived. He won 11 in year one, and we're going to say he's overrated because he couldn't beat Ohio State and Notre Dame? Really? Because we're being told what to think, and some of us don't think for ourselves enough. We react to what someone else said about something. I don't like Kurt Signetti personally. He and I wouldn't really go out for dinner. We wouldn't get along very well, partly because I'm kind of arrogant. He's pretty arrogant. We'd probably have a lot of disagreements. I didn't get along with a ton of people from where he's from, when I lived there. But is what he said wrong? If you're a Republican and you believe something and a Democrat says we should do this and it's what you believe, but you're not willing to say amen simply because he's a Democrat, you are not an honest person. If a Democrat believes something and a Republican says we should do this that you believe, but you won't support them because you're a Democrat, you are a low IQ person with no actual conviction. I can't stand people that will say, I'm gonna negate the message because I don't like the messenger. He's saying things we all believe. He's saying things we all agree with. He's saying things that we all think need to get fixed. But because we don't like him and because we don't actually engage with his comments, instead of actually just engaging with what people say he said, we get on our feelings about it. And we get article after article after article of clickbait nonsense of people saying Kirk Signetti's a crybaby. Well, maybe he is, but is what he's saying untrue? He's complaining about tampering in the system. Is he wrong? He's talking about how we need to get this situation figured out so we have an idea of what we're doing so we can go out and compete. Is he wrong? He's saying certain teams have a big advantage right now because they can spend 2, 3, sometimes 4 times as much money as we can to compete. Is he wrong? So it's no longer, hey, I got to go toe-to-toe with Steve Sarkisian and out-recruit him. Lay out my vision for this young man. He lays out his vision of the young man and let the best man win. It's not about that anymore. It's, hey, we can only offer you $300,000. That's all we can really afford to do, but we can do so much for you as a football player, as a young person, as this. And Texas just comes in and says, fine, we'll offer you $1.2 million. We have no plan for you to speak of. I'm being hyperbolic with that. It's not like Texas is just throwing money out, not having a plan, but I'm making a point. That is that what we all want? People say, well, we need to be more like the NFL. That's not what we're getting. We're getting Major League Baseball. That's what we're getting. We're getting Major League Baseball where 5 or 6 teams on a consistent basis who can spend the most money can win. Hey, you know, the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Cincinnati Reds do a great job of signing this guy to high school and develop him, or sign him out of Latin America as a 15, 16-year-old, and they develop him, they turn into this. But the first time he becomes a free agent, he's off to the Yankees, or he's off to the Dodgers, or he's off to some other team that can spend way more much money. Is that what we want? Is that what we want in college football? Where players can just jump in the portal every year and be tampered with? Is that what we want? Because that's what he's speaking against. So why are we in our feelings about what Curt Signetti said when we all agree with it? Because you're being told what to think. And not everybody, but too many people are buying it without any intellectual curiosity whatsoever. How many people in this chat, and I'm one of them because I initially did this as well, saw what was said and like, Signetti, and then went and talked about it without actually opening up the article to read what he said? How many people did that? Too many of us, myself included. But if you go back and read what he said nothing that all of us don't agree with. Nothing. There's an imbalance happening right now in money because certain teams have opportunities to spend money that others just cannot possibly dream of spending. Is that wrong? Is what he said wrong in that it's incorrect? It's not incorrect. Now you may say, "Hey, there's not that's America, baby, survival of the fittest." I don't think that's what made America America, but I've seen people say that. That's not what I want for college football, including Notre Dame. Because I don't think Notre Dame needs that money advantage to win. I think they have something to sell. But the reality is right now, if Notre Dame went to one of their star players who was being offered $1.5 million and said, hey, man, I know you're only making $150, but here's the vision we have for you. Here's the opportunity. Here's the 4 for 40. Here's this, here's that. How many of those players are going to stay if Notre Dame doesn't up the money? Very few. That's the reality. You can convince yourselves as a Notre Dame fan that no, all these kids, they're just staying because they love to be here. I can promise you that's not true. Now, are there players at Notre Dame that are willing to take less than what are being offered outside because they understand the vision and all that? Absolutely. But the kid making $100,000 is not going to keep making $100,000 when an SEC school offers $1.5 million just because he loves Notre Dame. Guys, you got to meet me halfway here. I'm glad that Notre Dame can do that, and they need to do that. I have no problem with Notre Dame doing that to keep their players here. But the reality is if Notre Dame didn't have the money they have, they'd lose more players. It's a fact. So Notre Dame needs to do what they're doing. And I'll get specific about Notre Dame here in a second, but the reality is Curt Signetti, who I don't particularly care for very much as a guy that I would hang out with, but respect the heck out of as a football coach because he's won at different levels, is saying something that we all kind of agree with. But then I got to read a chat on my board where it's basically 4 pages of bashing the guy and very few people actually engaging with what he actually said. That's frustrating. And I did it at first too. Then I actually read what he said, and then I was like, wow. That's not at all what he said. It's not what he said at all. So it's a system that needs to be broken. And, he says those people are kind of playing their own game, but you've got to be in that next tier. There are enough good ones out there. You've got to be able to retain your good ones and then go get what you need. He's got a plan. He's not just complaining about they can do this and then not having a plan to succeed. This is what's going on. We need to bring attention to it, but this is still the world we live in, so we're going to do the best job we can to go out and get the players that we need to compete with those teams. So he's doing what he's doing, but why are we upset that a guy that maybe who we don't like is bringing attention to a cause that we all say we believe in to varying degrees? We may not always agree on the exact way that it's getting done, but don't most of us believe that tampering should not be a thing anymore? Don't most of us believe that there should be some sort of pathway to this is how it's supposed to be in college football right now? Don't we all mostly agree with that? But yet when a coach we don't like personally brings it to our attention, we're like, screw that. I don't want to listen to it. And I just find that very frustrating because what he said is factually true. It is not fair to a lot of people in college football that Texas can throw around the money they can throw around to go poach their players, which is exactly why I said the transfer portal needs to be fixed. And the way you fix it, you don't let kids transfer without sitting out a year. Because you know what happens if you do that? Far few players are going to be sitting out. Here's something Trev and I were talking about. Let a kid, if he transfers he can transfer once in an offseason, barring a coaching change. So, I'm looking at this tweet. I sent this tweet to Tex, and I was like, dude, call me when you're done. Or I sent this tweet to Trevor. I said, call me when you're done. So he calls me, and I'm like, do you see this text or this tweet? And it says, Houston transfer so-and-so is going to Miami. This kid never played a down at Houston. He transferred to Houston in the fall or in the winter from Auburn, and now he's transferring to Miami. Houston transfer. Why is that allowed? Why are we allowing that? So if a coach that we don't like says something about, if James Franklin says, hey, this isn't okay, this is not right, we shouldn't be allowed to be doing this, am I going to say, well, screw him, he's a crybaby, even though it's something that I agree with? That's what's happening here. There's so many things that are broken that, hey, if you don't want to say, well, you can't spend the money, then fix other aspects of it that then make it harder for you to poach other people's players. That make it harder for you to poach a kid that we went and found, we developed, we recruited, and we built up. Make it harder for them to just go throw money at him just to get the kid. And so fix those things. But every time a coach we don't like brings attention to this, instead of actually saying, hey, he and I don't agree on a lot of things, but bro, we're together on this one. Then this is what we do. Same thing in politics. Well, I would normally support this cause, but because a person on the other party is the one going for it, I can't support it because they're a D or an R. It's stupid. So I don't have a problem at all with what he said at all. There's nothing wrong with what he said. Now, is some of it come across a little whiny? Yeah, but it's still correct. It's still absolutely correct that this is what's going on in college football. And you've got some of these teams just kind of sitting around waiting on this house settlement. And, but what are you going to do then? Because there's still going to be ways around it. This is still going to be a system where players are just, hey, look, man, you're at Notre Dame. You can just offer more money than Indiana can. You're at Texas. You can just offer more money than Houston and Baylor, just the way that it is. And that's going to be true even if the way that I want things to go comes about. Though here's what I think should happen. You take the money, and every school gets, let's say it's 105. Every school gets, this is your rev share. This is what it accounts to. Let's just say it's $10 million for argument's sake. It may be more, maybe less. I'm just making a point. You have 100 players that you got to distribute that to evenly. If you have less than 100 players, or let's say it's 105 players, that's the new rule. You got 105 players, you got to distribute this to evenly. If you have less than 105 players on your team, then you get prorated. You take out whatever that amount would be, and you get it down. If you have 95, then you're getting the same amount per player that another school is, but you don't have 105 players. So the reason you got to do that is you don't want to encourage schools to say, hey, we're going to have 10 less players so we can pay everybody more, and that gives us a competitive advantage. Every player makes the same amount of money as part of the rev share. That's exactly how it should be. Then you create rules that say this is what NIL actually is. NIL is you're benefiting off your name, image, and likeness. There's some sort of transaction taking place. We're going to pay you as Irish Breakdown feels that Dallas Golden would be a great spokesman for Irish Breakdown. We want him to do reads, and we want him to do ads. We want him to show up at our tailgate. We want him to do this. So I believe that he would be great for that. So I'm going to pay Dallas. I'm going to offer Dallas X amount of dollars to come be our spokesman. And then he can either say, I want more than that, or okay. If he wants more than that, then I decide do I think the value that he would bring to being our spokesman is worth in new sales, new subscribers, new viewers, what he's offering. And if the answer is yes, then I'm willing to pay him that money. If the answer is no, then I'm not going to pay him that money. But if some business is just doing well enough to where, and they love Notre Dame, and they can say, hey, look, yeah, we'll give him that money, but he still has to do these things that he's contractually obligated to do, that's fine. That's NIL. I'm totally okay with that. And there should be no caps on that. If a business, like if I choose, hey, I love Notre Dame, so if I got to make this happen, let's use a different example. Let's say there's some star receiver in the 2027 class that I really want Notre Dame to get. And so I'm like, look, man, you do these things, you do these functions for my business. I'm going to pay you $1.5 million. I don't think I'm going to make it that much money. And say, his relationship with us is not going to be good enough or, strong enough for us to make all that money back, but we'll make some of it back. But I'm rich and I want this guy to come to Notre Dame. Okay. That's his choice. It's his money. But there should still be some sort of exchange going on. That's name, image, and likeness. That's how it should work. And then the rev share should just be every kid gets this amount of dollars. I don't want it to be like, well, you're the star quarterback, you get this much, and you're worth this value and all this. That's how we ruin the sport, in my opinion. And then let NIL do whatever they want. That's where the capitalism aspect of it comes into play. Hey, if some school is willing to pay that for a quarterback and ain't, if you don't want to do that, then get better boosters. Simple as that. And so this whole thing is broken. Kurt Signetti is bringing up that it's broken, and people are going off about it because they don't like him without actually engaging with anything he said, and that's a frustration. Now, having said that, this notion that Notre Dame is one of the big spenders, they are. But here's why Notre Dame is being successful right now, and here's why Ohio State won the title last year. I don't believe Ohio State won the title because they went and paid for Caleb Downs and Quinshon Judkins. Would they have still won the title if they didn't have those two players? Maybe. Maybe not. But they would have also not won the title if they'd got those two players but lost Jack Sawyer, lost JTT, lost Emeka Egbuka, some of the other players that they gave a lot of money to convince to come back not to go to the NFL. The majority of the money they spent last year was taking care of their own players. The vast majority of the money that Notre Dame is spending, and they're spending a lot, is on their own players. It's not paying, $3 million to convince Noah Grubbs to commit to Notre Dame, because I promise you that's not why Noah Grubbs committed to Notre Dame. It's not to go out and let's overspend to get Malachi Fields to come here. Is Malachi Fields getting a package to come to Notre Dame? Of course he is, just like Riley Leonard did, just like Sam Hartman did. Is that the reason Riley Leonard picked Notre Dame over those others? No, it's not. Is it the reason Malachi Fields picked Notre Dame over those others? No, it's not. But you're kidding yourself if you think that Notre Dame gave him a Big Mac, on his visit and gave him a $100 gift card to Penn Station, and that convinced him to come here. No, but the vast majority of what Notre Dame is spending is on their own players. That's how you build it. That's how you win. That's the right way to build a roster. Not to go out there and buy 30 players like Miami did, or Texas Tech did, or some of these other schools are doing. Maybe that'll eventually work. Hasn't yet. Because if you look at last year's Final Four teams, Texas is the only one that had a really heavy portal acquisition group. But even then, the majority of their best players were homegrown guys. Even Quinn Ewers, who was a portal guy, he transferred after 1 year. He never played at Ohio State. He was developed at Texas. The majority of their best players were developed at Texas. Did having a guy like Matthew Golden help? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, though. That's all. Just like Notre Dame went out and got Riley Leonard. Is Notre Dame a Final Four team if Riley Leonard's not on the team last year? No, he's not. But the majority of the team was still homegrown. Ohio State's that way. Penn State is that way. The best teams so far have been teams who are primarily homegrown. Washington went out and got some really good pickups out of the transfer portal when Kalen DeBoer got there. Went out and got Michael Penix. But who were his top two weapons? Rome Odunze and Jalen McMillan. Trev, who did they sign with out of high school? Washington. The majority of their offensive line signed with Washington out of high school. Did they get some transfers? Of course they did. But the teams that are having the most success are still teams primarily building from within. And so Notre Dame is doing that, and I think that's how Notre Dame needs to build. Be willing to spend money to keep your players here. As long as there's you have to have a conversation that they're going to be bought into what you're doing, and sometimes you got to know when to let a guy walk. If this is really just about you're going to leave unless we match what they're offering you, then you know what? If money's that important to you and you need it that bad, then maybe you should go to Ole Miss. Maybe you should go to Texas. And then I'm going to win with the guy that really wants to be here. But should you still say, well, hold on a second, Leonard Moore. You agreed to $100,000 last year. Why not? Well, $100,000 last year as a true freshman that had no presence and was hadn't done anything. Now I have, and this school's offered me $1.5 million. So are you going to put your foot down and say, no, Leonard Moore, we're not going to pay? Well, that's stupid. That's really dumb. Should you have to match the whole thing to keep him here? No, you shouldn't. But you still need to take care of your players. And so I believe that there's a right and a wrong way to do the portal. There's a right way and a wrong way to do the rev share. There's a right and a wrong way to do NIL. The problem is right now, none of those things are being handled the right way. And then every time a coach that we don't like, whether it's Nick Saban or Kurt Signetti or anybody else that raises that alarm, we want to criticize them for it because we don't like them. And we're being told by other people how we should feel about it. And instead of actually engaging his real words in context of what he said them, we want to say, well, so-and-so said that he's crying about Notre Dame making $40 million. Never said that. He never said that. He never said Texas is making $40 million. He inferred it, and you can draw it. He said the top is $40 million, and then Texas is, Oregon and Texas are at the top. So you can kind of infer it a little bit. But he wasn't saying Notre Dame was making that kind of money. He gave a range of what schools are making. And Notre Dame is nowhere close to $40 million. Nowhere close to that. But trust me, Notre Dame's in the top 10 of spending money, and they should be. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with what Texas did from the standpoint of, hey, I don't like what they're doing. That's wrong. It's immoral. No, I don't like that the system is built this way, but why should Texas not take advantage of the system the way that it is? Why? Is anything that Texas is doing this offseason illegal? Is anything that Texas did this offseason against the spirit of what we're trying to? Well, no, because everything Texas did to spend all the money they've spent, everything Texas Tech has done to spend all the money they've spent is within the rules. So what's he trying to do? Fix the rules so they can't do that anymore. And then those schools will have to stay within it. So that's basically what we're coming from here is, we're trying to say we want something done a certain way. And then when somebody does it a certain way, we want to, so when somebody says, well, it should be done this way, but we don't like that person, we complain about it. Come on now. We should be better than that. We should be better than that. So end of the day, Trev, rant over. I completely agree with Kurt Signetti. The system is broken. And it is creating a system of haves and have-nots. Now, for us as Notre Dame fans, we're all good because at this point in time, it's benefiting Notre Dame. But just because it's benefiting Notre Dame doesn't mean that we should say, hey, system's fine. If you believe the system is broken, you should say the system's broken, whether it's benefiting your school or not. And it's benefiting right now, Notre Dame right now. But I still think it's wrong. So I'm willing to say that it's wrong. That's where we're at.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair. I have a lot of mixed emotions about Signetti's comments as a whole. I don't really have an issue with dollar amounts being thrown out, to be honest with you, even if Notre Dame was spending $40 million, which I know that they're not.
Yeah, I'd have no problem if they were, if
Yeah.
they had the money, but they're not.
And the way that I look at it is, look, whether it's to go out and get 35 portal players in the portal, or if you're spending most of your money retaining your own team and keeping that together, the dollar amount is the dollar amount, and you're working within the confines of the system that you're currently in. Not saying that it's the correct system. Everything that Signetti said was right. The tampering and the top tier of the talent and all that. One of the issues that I have with Signetti doing it is it's not – do I think he's a whiner to a degree? Not about that, because I don't like the titles of the articles that came out about like Signetti snitches on teams. Like, listen, guys, like it's not a mystery of who's spending the most money in the offseason. That's not
And he's not the first person to throw out the $40 million number. He's going off of what he read somewhere else, that's what Texas is doing.
So the issue that I have with Signetti, it's not because of his coaching. I think he's a great coach. We talked about that a lot in the week leading up to the Notre Dame IU game. Some of it was, we can't compete with the Alabamas and the Miamis in terms of nil. And it's like, okay, yeah, but neither of those teams made the playoffs last year, and you did. Part of my issue, and you brought it up, was, he's at IU. IU is a team that historically is not invested in their football program.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that it's right, but hey, Kurt, it's not a surprise that IU can't compete with the big brands in college football when it comes to NIL, because they just haven't invested in their football program for the better half of 100 years.
But they're not. There are certain schools that will never be able to spend the way Texas can, or Oregon can, or Texas Tech can, or Notre Dame can. And that's the heart of what he's saying, which is true. There are some schools that could spend it, Trev, but they won't. If
Sure.
Northwestern wanted to spend as much money as Notre Dame on football, they could. They got the donors. They don't want to.
Oh, yeah.
That's different. Do you think, you're from Indy, so you'll know a little bit. You grew up in Indiana, so you'll actually know this better than I do. I'm not sitting there saying like Indiana doesn't have any rich boosters, because they absolutely do. I mean, Mark Cuban being one. But do you think there's any chance in the world that Indiana is going to ever be able to have the kind of money consistently to compete in a pure who's got the most amount of money system with the likes of Texas and Oregon or even Notre Dame?
Mm-mm. No. So, sorry, I didn't know if you would.
No. You're good.
So the way that I look at this is, yes, there's an issue with NIL going on, but we've seen it with the SEC, with the playing field being more even this year, that the SEC isn't the dominant conference because they had been known to pay their players already before. Now that other schools can, they weren't as dominant as before. That's why I say it's kind of hard for me to look at Kurt and say, yeah, you're right, dude. We got to help you out to make you be more competitive, when the conference that had been paying players all along, now everybody can do it. And now all of a sudden they're significantly less competitive. Grant, like big picture college football. That's why it makes it a little difficult for me to say, like, yes, I'm a believer that I think the rev share will help. And I've made the analogy before of what it should be is like a base salary and then commission. Your base salary should be the revenue share. And whatever you make in NIL money is based on performance, your name, image, and likeness, how it should be. But I think this problem is still going to persist even with a revenue share model. That doesn't mean I think that nothing should be changed, because problems will still remain. I think it should be changed. But then what is it going to mean when it's like, okay, well, now schools like Indiana, who will never be able to compete financially with Notre Dame and Ohio State, everybody has the same amount of rev share, but who gets more national attention, Ohio State, Notre Dame, or Indiana football?
Mm-hmm.
It's Notre Dame and Ohio State. So then it's going to turn into, well, yeah, we all have the revenue share, but they can offer more NIL packages because they have more connections.
Sure.
They have more.
Sure.
And then it's just going to be the issue again.
Right.
And then we're going to bring up, well, it's just not fair because for IU, they just can't. So maybe,
we don't know that, Trev. Like this is my pushback to what you're saying. You're saying that if this got fixed, then he's going to complain about this. We don't know that. We can only address what he's complaining about now.
Sure.
And what he's complaining about now are things that we have both said on this show plenty of times he's right about.
Yeah.
So there will never be a system, nor do I ever want a system where it's like everybody's 8-8 because you've made it so much parity that it's 8-8. I don't like that. I love excellence, but I also feel like there needs to be certain guardrails in place.
Absolutely.
It's like I'm someone who doesn't believe in a lot of regulation on business, but I'm also not someone who believes there should be no regulation because that's when cheating and all these other kind of things come into play.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so you should always reward greatness. So if a coach wants to come in and he's a great recruiter and he's a great developer and all these kind of things, and they've got a good, then I'm good with that. But what's happening now, because there is no rev share and because this system is not created yet, and that's kind of what he said, we're sitting there back waiting on that piece of the pie because right now it's all donation money. Then it's harder because like it's what you and I talked about when actually, I don't know if you were on the show yet, but one of the things I talked about is I called the SEC taking a step back when everybody else started paying money. And I said, this is going to be great for Notre Dame. Because now Notre Dame can say, hey, we may not be able to pay as much as Georgia, but we can pay a lot. So now all of our 4 for 40 and all that stuff that kids were attracted to before has more teeth to it because even though we're not going to offer you $1 million, we're going to offer you $500,000 and all these other things. And you're smart enough to know, and you've got parents enough and support them to know, hey, that $1 million from Georgia is not going to go as far as that $500,000 from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Whereas before it was $1 million and nothing, or 500. It wasn't $1 million. There weren't many kids getting $1 million, but it was 300,000-400,000 to nothing.
Sure.
And that was the difference. And so you are seeing that. So Ohio State can now say, hey, listen, you come here, we're not going to give you as much as Ole Miss, but we're going to give you this, and you're going to have this advantage, that advantage, this other advantage. So the system has hurt the SEC, no question about it, because they were cheating before, and Bama Jones can say whatever he wants about how he wasn't doing that, but we all know that he's lying out of his, what. But the issue isn't so much that there's going to be ever a system where it's just completely fair, but right now there is no system. It's just open season on everything. That's what he's pushing back against. We need to have something that's kind of reining this in to a degree.
Yeah.
So like, for example, Notre Dame, you'd mentioned Notre Dame will be able to have, there is more advantage to, if I'm a business owner, having a Notre Dame player if I'm an Indiana business owner, there's going to be most of the areas, there's going to be more advantage to me having a Notre Dame kid sort of be my spokesman than an Indiana guy, other than like around the Bloomington area. Right. And that's just the reality of it. And so there will be advantages to Notre Dame. But as long as there's a baseline that allows a team like Indiana to get something to allow them to at least be here. So like right now, Notre Dame's here, Indiana's here. All he's saying is this should be fixed so we can at least get to here, not bringing Notre Dame down. And that's what I liked about his argument. He didn't say it's bullcrap that they can spend that money and we can't. He's saying there needs to be a system in place where we can get part of the rev share so we can at least have something to give to our players. And that's what I take what he's saying as, which I think is fair. It's what he's talking about. And so the whole point that he's pushing, but now if he gets this and then starts crying about something else, then it's like, okay, dude's a crybaby because he's no longer fighting for a cause that I'm fighting for also. So like the stuff you're talking about, Trev, I'd be like, all right, man, now you're just kind of being a crybaby. And then we'll handle it then. And then we'll call him a crybaby then. But I just can't go there and be like, well, because I don't like him, then that's what we're doing. And there's even people in the chat like, how dare he call for a cap on players when he just signed a contract? He never said that. And say, well, he wants regulation. Yeah. There's regulation, just like there's regulation on coaches. You get hired, you make X amount of dollars, but you're expected to live up to this contract. And if you don't live up to the contract, we're going to fire you. And if you do certain things within the contract, we're going to fire you with cause and you get no money. That's regulation. Is it not? It's not Wild West in coaching, because if you leave one school to go to another, what do you got to do? You got to pay a buyout. That's regulation. So a coach in a regulated system wants regulated system for the players. What's wrong with that? Just because you don't understand that this is regulation and that's not, doesn't mean that it's not happening. So that's my frustration. And I do believe that Notre Dame is taking advantage of the system as it is. They're not cheating. Neither's Texas, as far as I know. I mean, well, they're not cheating when it comes to the money. I mean, there's plenty of schools cheating when it comes to it kind of, the tampering thing. But it's like, if you don't tamper, you're not going to get anybody, because that's just, now you're rewarding the tamperers. And so there is no rules there. There is no punishment for tampering right now, unless you're, who was that team in New York that got, like, that basketball team that nobody cares about, that got dinged because they took players to Madison Square Garden? Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
Some small level D1 team got hammered by the NCAA because they were taking players like Madison Square Garden on recruiting trips. It's ridiculous. It's the old expression. Who was it? Tarkanian that said, the NCAA is so mad at Kentucky that they're going to put it's like Long Beach State on probation or something like that. You know what I mean? It's like, that's absolutely true. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So it's frustrating to see the response to it. And this is why nothing ever gets done in politics. It's why nothing ever gets done in things like that. Because we all say we fight for something, but I'm only going to advocate for it if somebody I like, or that has an R by their name or a D by their name, or is a Notre Dame coach. But if this coach over here that I don't like, if Ryan Day says it or James Franklin says it because I don't like them, then I can't support it. I got to call them out on it. That's just the dumbest. It should be like, dude, we got some allies. Like, okay, he believes this, and this coach believes this, and that. Hey, now we've got momentum. Now we've got a organic kind of movement happening, but we don't get that anymore. It's like it's funny. I saw something. I'll talk about this. Make a point using politics for a second. I saw something where Congress has a 20-something% approval rating. So that means over 70% of the people, almost 80% of the country, doesn't approve of what Congress is doing. Do you think there's any chance in heck that 80% of people in Congress get voted out in 2026? There's a 0% chance that many people are going to get voted out. Why? Well, I don't support Congress, but I support my guy. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what we always do. I don't believe in them, but this is the local guy. This is this, that. And it's just like, don't call yourself this if you're not actually going. Don't rant about this if you're actually going to still support the person. That's part of the problem. Anything with a 20% approval rating should be gone. All of them. I say hyperbolically, but we'll keep reelecting the same people, and there'll be a couple people to get primaried and a couple people to get voted out, and we'll talk about those couple times, but by and large, it's the same thing over and over again. And it's the same part. There's really not a whole lot of different from either of the parties. And we keep falling for it because even though we're the ones that can make the change, it's the same thing in sports. If we don't like this, who has the most power to fix this? The people. Stop spending your money on this. Stop doing this. Stop doing that. Stop going here. Stop watching. Stop. Well, I don't like it, but I'm still going to watch. Well, then don't cry about the fact that nothing changes. If you're not willing to sacrifice something that you enjoy to fix something, then stop crying about it and just enjoy it. Like, seriously. And that's okay. That's totally fine. Look, I'm not that fired up about the transfer portal that I'm going to stop watching college football. All right, fine. I'm not going to stop watching college football. Then that's different. But don't be like, I'll never watch again if this happens, and then that happens. Well, okay, but now I'm definitely never going to watch again if this other thing happens, and it happens. Okay, but now I'm not going to just stop. Just stop. Okay, just admit you just like to cry about stuff, but you're not actually going to stop voting for this party, and you're not going to stop watching this sport. You are. And so stop crying about it. And that's end of the day, that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Fair enough.
And there's so many bad arguments being made, and I'm seeing them in the chat now. So many bad arguments in the chat. So little understanding of what is actually being argued for. That it's just like, this is why nothing gets done, because you don't even understand what you're talking about right now. But it is what it is. So longest individual buy-so-hold response ever. Trev, why don't you do a quick transition here before we get to the next one?
Yeah, you got it. Well, all right, folks, we are getting ready to move on to the bulk of the portion of Buy, Sell, Hold. But before we get there, please be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, share this podcast with your friends and family. But as always, best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, we got some more buy-sell holds, and we are back to the top, back to our regularly scheduled programming. And our guy Salty is kicking us off, and he put in buy-sell hold. Following a conversation between Donald Trump and Nick Saban last Thursday, Trump communicated that he is considering issuing an executive order limiting and reforming NIL in college football. Although such an initiative might not serve legal challenges, it would bring up the issue front and center and be helpful in establishing a starting point for a wider public debate than is currently occurring.
So I'm going to buy this overall. I'm going to need to do a little bit more research on what exactly Trump said. So I think that I'm more familiar with what Nick Saban has said than what Trump said in response to meeting Nick Saban. There's a million things going on. I haven't had a chance to dive into this one. But what I will say is this, is I'm for limiting athlete compensation from the standpoint of the revenue share. And I think that should be equally handed out amongst all the players. I think there should be two types of compensation to college football athletes. Three, actually. One is the scholarship, room and board, that financial agreement where you're agreeing to come play football here and go to class and do this, and then we're agreeing to pay your scholarship. Now, that's one thing. The second one is the revenue share that's equally distributed to all teams. Correct? It's the same amount. Texas doesn't get more than Texas Tech, right? It's going to be the same for all teams, correct? Am I understanding that correctly so far?
Mm-hmm.
That amount of money should be equally distributed to everyone on your team, and they should get a certain amount of money. Those two things are just, they are what they are. The third one is where I think people are missing the boat, and this is why I think the House settlement and some of the aspects of the House settlement are misguided in that they want to cap NIL. That I strongly disagree with. Strongly disagree with. NIL should not be capped. You should not put a market on saying, well, we're not going to allow you to pay this kid a certain amount of money that you may be worth it to you for him to do an advertisement or to be a partner with your organization. If I run, Pepsi, right, and I want to go have CJ Carr be my spokesman for Mountain Dew, if I value CJ Carr is worth $1 million, then I should be allowed to pay him $1 million. And if that ends up being a bad investment for my company, that's on me. I'm a bad CEO. The board can vote me out. So that part is where I have a problem with. So whether or not that's something that they should do, will stand up, I don't know how that's going to go. But I do think there's people now talking about NIL that wouldn't be talking about it. The problem is when Trump says something, there's a certain portion of his supporters that are just going to agree with whatever he says, even if they previously didn't agree with it. And now we're not really having an honest dialogue about it. And that's basically the problem with politics being brought into this, is if you're a supporter of one party and someone from the other side is now speaking something that you agree with that goes back to the last thing, well, I now can't agree with that person because they're a D or they're an R. And if you are anti-Trump, then you're just, whatever he says, you're just going to disagree with. It's hilarious watching people respond to Trump now because, and it was the same way under the last two Democrat presidents, is I thought you guys used to believe in that. I thought you guys used to support that. Why are you now against it? And it's hilarious that both sides do this to each other, is when they're going after the current president, they always play clips of themselves saying the opposite thing when they were in power. It's hilarious. But that's the problem when you start getting into politics, is like, are we actually going to get an honest conversation about this? Or are people now going to say, well, since Trump said it, we got to spin it a certain way to make it look a certain way. And so I don't know that he'd be the person that I would want to be talking about this for that reason. But at the same time, there is no bigger megaphone in the country than the one that is being held by the president of the United States, whoever it is. There's no bigger bully pulpit in the country than the one being held by than the one the president has. Correct. So if it's an issue we're passionate about, and if what he says brings about honest debate on this subject, then good. That's a good thing. If it's honest debate, that's a good thing. I just fear that it's going to get poisoned like everything else that politics touches right now. That's my concern. But if it sparks an honest debate on what needs to get done, then let's do it. let's have it. And if they need Donald Trump to bring it up, even if I don't agree with what he's saying, and I'm only saying based on a very limited amount of what he said, I don't agree with what he's saying. If it's like, hey, it brings up this honest point of view, then let's have it. Let's have that debate. Let's have that discussion, and let's finally fix this stupid thing. Because that's my hope, is that whatever the end result is, him now getting involved forces people to start doing something as opposed to just talking about it. Like Ted Cruz loves to talk about things that should be done. Where's the bill, bro? Like, seriously, you keep talking about this. Where's the bill? Where's the legislation? Where's this? All you're doing is talking and going on this network and that network. And that's what some of these people do. Is talk. Where's the bill? Where's the where's the votes? Because right now you're just talking, and talking does nothing except, now maybe more people are going to listen to your podcast. That's it. So I want to see something done. And if him getting involved starts to say, hey, we got to get something done, then great. That's great. So I'll buy the general idea of what you're saying without diving too much into the particulars of what he said yet, because I haven't done a deep dive and really read through what he said. And I can't take a strong stance on what he said after what I said in the first 40 minutes, because I said engage with what you know. I can't engage with a strong opinion about what he actually said because I haven't read a whole lot of what he said. But I just know that if the end result is we're having a broader conversation because he is now using the megaphone of the presidency to bring light to an issue that's needs more light, great. Now let's have an open, honest conversation about it and get people on record for what they be. I'm a big believer in that. Bring daylight to what you believe. If you vote on it, and then the people of those districts or states can decide whether they support that person or not. And that's on them. Now, you voted for this guy, so stop crying. You don't like this? Then why'd you vote for him? So that's what I'm a get people on record for where they stand on this stuff. Flat out. Get them on record. That's what I believe in. So I'll buy it overall.
I think before you can start reforming NIL, you need to clearly define what it means. I'm all
100%.
on board for putting in regulations and reforming it and whatever you have to do. But right now they're in the process. They're just going in this endless circle of, we got to reform this. Like, okay, what are we reforming? Because NIL is too much of an umbrella term right now. It's, you can pay people out of the athletic budget and you're going and signing deals with businesses, and you can put there needs to be a definitive definition for what NIL truly stands for. Might be a little biased, but I think Notre Dame does it the right way. But there has to be an overarching, because it's left up to interpretation. That was more to Curt Signetti's point of look, whether teams use it for retaining their own roster or going and acquiring new talent, it's just all NIL.
Mm-hmm.
And there's way too many different interpretations of it. And so before you can go through and truly reform it or limit what you're doing, you have to define truly what it is. Once you do that, you can move forward.
100%.
And I'm all on board for that. But until that point, you're trying to reform something that's still just kind of an idea. And what we're seeing right now is a repercussion of it being started too quickly.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we can pay players now. Cool, let's do it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, well, what does it mean? I don't know, but we can pay them, and it's called NIL.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to pay them off of their name, image, and likeness. It's like, okay, well, how much are we allowed to? Doesn't matter. But as long as we call it NIL, we could pay them.
And what is the deal you gave Nico have to do with NIL? He wouldn't even go to events, and you didn't punish him if he wouldn't go to events, and he wouldn't show up at events. So you weren't actually giving him that for name, image, and likeness. You were just giving him that to come play quarterback. That's pay for play. Mm-hmm. And that's why I'm very clear, Trev, to use the difference. There's the rev share and there's NIL, and they're two different things.
Yep.
They should be treated very differently. The rev share that's shared equally amongst all the teams, and not this team gets more than this team, should then be equally distributed to the players in the same format. Otherwise, if you're going to say, well, this quarterback makes this much, but the center makes this much, then why doesn't Ohio State make more than Indiana in the rev share? They make more, and they get more people watching them on TV. So why is the rev share equal? So if the rev share is going to be equal amongst teams, then it should be equal amongst players. And then we've solved that problem. And now we're like, when you start putting the revenue share money with the NIL money, and now all of a sudden it's just one contract. It's like, that's super freaking complicated. One amount that every player gets, whether you play for Vanderbilt or Alabama, they all get that same amount of rev share money from TV, from being part of college football. Then make NIL. I love that, Trev. Define what NIL means and stop making it this boogeyman that now people say, NIL's bad. No, it's not. Well, you don't like what's going on in college football. Exactly, because that's not NIL. That's pay for play. The NIL support. Should you put caps on it? No, you shouldn't put caps on it. Let a business owner decide what his cap is for what he can pay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of collectives because you're just bringing in money to give the players. I'm not a big fan of that. If you should have collectives are like, hey, look, we're partnering with – so like if there was a collective that was part of Notre Dame, what it is we're going to get with all these national brands and local brands and say, here's what we have to – here's what our players can do. What are your expectations? What are you willing to pay? Here's this, here's that. And then if Gatorade wants to sign 10 Notre Dame players to certain deals, and then go for it. And that's part of what it is. And what does that deal mean? Hey, you're going to go on your social media. You're going to do this commercial. You're going to do this. Like there was the commercial with the Notre Dame women's basketball team. I think it was like an AT&T commercial or something like that. They should all got – that's NIL. That's NIL. That's what those girls were doing. That's NIL. We're going to give you a certain amount of money to be part of a commercial that we're hoping to then advertise to a certain audience. In this particular commercial, we want to reach this type of audience. That's NIL. Just saying we're going to give you $8 million over 3 years to come play quarterback for us, and you just got to show up at a couple handshake events. That's not NIL. That's pay for play. So be very clear what NIL is. Agree with you completely on that, Trev. It's a great point.
Buy, sell, hold from Mr. Emil Wagner. We will see a limited 4 running back rotation this year due to the amount of talent in the room. The 4th running back would be a goal line short yardage option.
What do you think, Trev, on that one? I got to think about that one.
I want to know what you mean by limited.
Meaning, I think it's going to be 4, but not all 4 are doing the same amount of things. So, like, it'll be 4 guys, but some of them will have a limited role. That's how I took it because he said the 4th would be just like a goal line short yardage back. That's how I took it.
I got you.
Because of that qualifier.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Emil, I think I'm going to sell this, if I'm understanding this correctly, for a couple of reasons. One, Notre Dame has 5 running backs, arguably 6 running backs right now that should all play. And not just because of talent, but because they can significantly help your offense. And so of the 5, I sit and I break down. I think Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, at the minimum, their rotation is going to look like what it was in 2024. And they might be even more involved on third down now that we have this idea that they're going to be more used in the passing game on offense. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about yesterday when we were going over the depth chart. What will this start to look like? You have a lot of Riley Leonard's carries, short yardage, goal line, red zone, third down. Who is that going to be divvied up against? Is Jabron Payne and Aeneas Williams going to be splitting third down reps like what Devin Ford and Aeneas Williams did last year? Because people do forget Jabron Payne was the third down running back in 2023. Like
he was a good one.
He was. He was even using short yardage at times. He scored the first touchdown against Ohio State on a Wildcat play.
Oh, no.
In 2023.
Also scored the first touchdown against USC on a great behind-the-back catch on a bad ball from Sam Hartman, correct?
He did.
It was a great catch, by the way.
That
was right in front of us. So Vince and I were outside, like on the deck for that.
Yeah.
And X had just had that first pick and ran it back. And so he caught that ball like right in front of us. So we saw ooh, that was a heck of a catch. Sorry, it just reminded me of that.
He was, to your point, great third down running back in 2023. What is that rotation going to look like? And then you have a guy in Kedron Young that what we've seen in spring, what we saw in the Jersey scrimmage, what we saw in the blue gold game. He's going to be too talented to keep off the field. So the only reason why I'm selling, I agree that it will be limited, but I'm selling that it's just going to be a 4 running back rotation because they have 5 guys right now that I all believe are going to see minutes on the field, meaningful minutes. But I do buy that it is going to be limited because there is a finite amount of snaps that 5 running backs can take. So that's where I'm at with that one.
I do think ultimately it's going to be at 4, Trev. So I'm going to buy this. I'm just trying to, in my head, as you're talking, I'm like, dude, that all sounds great. But thinking about as a coach, how do I make that work? And that's hard to make that work, especially since Jabron and Aeneas are kind of the same guy. And it's like, well, is it 3rd and long Aeneas and 3rd and shorts Jabron? Like, it's hard for me to figure out how to make that work. Because then I can start talking about, well, look, I mean, the best pass catcher on the roster at running back might be Nolan James Jr. You know what I mean? Like, that's the challenge when the room is this loaded. So I think it's going to have to be 4. And I'd lean more towards 3 than 5 on a regular basis. I think there will be games, Trev, where we see 5. I think there's a good chance we'll see 5 in some sort of thing against Purdue. I don't think there's much of a chance that we see 5 against Miami. So I think that's also part of it. Is we talking about like every week, or
it's a good point.
Half the time. So I'm gonna buy that it'll be a limited 4 running back rotation, because I also think they desire to get more 3rd down opportunities for Jeremiah Love, and that's no disrespect to Aeneas Williams. It's just kind of like, how do you justify taking that guy off the field in that situation?
For sure. Buy, sell, hold. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Randy Moss on the 2024 team. Al Golden is the defensive coordinator of the 2015 team, and Manti Te'o on the 2005 team.
Boy, that's a tough one. I'm gonna buy the easiest one's the buy. I'm gonna buy Al Golden as the DC 2015 team. That is without question the easiest buy on there.
Yeah.
Picking between the other two is tougher because Randy Moss was phenomenal, and I'd probably lean towards holding him because he was phenomenal. But did you have the quarterback in 2024 to take full advantage of the things that Randy Moss can do? Yes, you can get him the tunnels and the screens, but are you going to be able to get him some of the vertical stuff? Did you have the quarterback for that? I don't know. Because, again, these are all phenomenal options, right? None of these are bad options. It's basically picking what's the best of the 3 great options, right? I mean, so
yeah.
And then I would probably hold that just because I can't sell Randy Moss. Reason I would sell Manti is because as great as Manti was, I don't think the linebacker group in 05 was a problem. I thought Corey Mays, he's no Manti Te'o, but he's a good football player. Yeah. If you're going to ask me, if you were going to tell me Manti, I would be more prone to say Manti 06 would have made me think a little bit harder about that than Manti 05. Because I really liked the Corey Mays, Brandon Hoyt group in 05. I think the issues were more, when Chris Fromm got hurt at end, and I think there were some issues in the secondary. But Manti, Manti would have made, all these options make you better than what you were. It's which one is the most impactful. And I think Al Golden in 05, a coach who likes to blitz his linebackers coaching Jalen Smith. I think I could do something with that. I think I could probably do something with that. A coach who likes to let his interior defensive lineman rush the quarterback would have had Sheldon Day. I think I'd have been okay with that. I don't think they'd have been able to play quite as much man, but Kavari and Cole Luke would have still been able to play man a decent amount. So, yeah, I'll buy Al Golden, hold Randy Moss, sell Manti on the 05 team. If you give me Manti 06, I might have to rethink that one a little bit.
Let me ask you this then, because I have the same answer as you do, and I don't want to regurgitate the reasoning. What if it was Brady Quinn on the 24 team, Al Golden, DC, the 2015 team, Justin Tuck on the 05 team?
I would then buy Justin Tuck on the 05 team. I would hold Al Golden. You said Al Golden 2015? It's the same?
Yeah, that's the same.
And I'd sell Brady. Because, again, I think that Riley Leonard's unique skill set was needed greatly on last year's team. I don't think they had the receiving core to take advantage of Brady's game as much as they did in 05 and 06.
Sure.
If you give me if you give me Randy Moss on the 25 team, to your point, we're going to have a different conversation because I think CJ and Kenny throw a much better deep ball.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, Mantown, the 06 team would have made me think twice about than Mantown, the 05 team, because it's about which one has the greatest impact. They all make you better, but which one makes you the best?
Yeah.
The Brady Quinn on the 24 team is the toughest, is probably the easiest one to say I'd sell on. As much as I love Brady Quinn, I'm just looking around being like, does Brady Quinn make Chris Mitchell better? Yeah. Does he make Bo Collins better? Yeah, he's freaking Brady Quinn. But is it enough to negate not having that running ability behind that offensive line and the issues they had in pass pro this season? No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Fair enough.
I'd still sell. Brady Quinn with the 25 roster, I might have a different conversation with.
Okay.
Because now you got Malachi Fields, who's like, that's Brady's type of receiver.
Yeah, it is.
That's 6'4", 220, back shoulder guy. Now we're cooking with what Brady liked to throw to. Big 6'7" tight end right up the seam, running backs that can catch the ball, good pass pro, because I do think pass pro is going to be better. Now we're cooking with a Brady type. But 24, I'm still rolling with Riley, so I'd sell that.
Fair.
It's a good follow-up, real good follow-up. You made me say no to Brady Quinn. Do you know how hard that is? Do you know?
That's why I said Brady.
Scenarios there are that I would say no to Brady Quinn, Trev. That's very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, very well done.
Buy, sell, hold. Again, from Miss Emil Wagner. My favorite basketball team, the Fab Five, was the biggest underachievers in college basketball history. Not only no national titles, but didn't even win a Big Ten title. Purdue and Glenn Robinson won both during Weber's 2 years there.
This is actually incorrect. Glenn Robinson won 2 titles against the Fab. He won 1 Big Ten title against the Fab Five. That was in 92-93. The second Big Ten title was under Glenn Robinson, was 93-94 after Weber left. The freshman year for the Fab Five, Ohio State won the Big Ten. Now, Ohio State and Michigan played each other that year. What happened? It was the Final Four. What happened? Michigan won. So what would you rather have as a fan of the Fab Five? Them to win the Big Ten against Ohio State, but then lose to Ohio State in the semifinals in the Final Four, or would you rather have it the way that you had it? The other thing is, so I'm selling this overall, but because what he said doesn't change the point. It doesn't change the point of what he said. I'm still selling it because I don't think that I think far too often people say because you didn't win it all, you failed. What the Buffalo Bills did was a tremendous achievement. Yeah, they fell short. And not all the time they fell short to a superior team. Cowboys were better than them the one year. The Redskins were better than 1 year. I don't know that the Cowboys were better than them both years, and the Giants certainly shouldn't have beat the Bills when they played. So when I look at the Fab Five and I look at what they accomplished, I mean, in 1991-92, that Ohio State team had a junior Jim Jackson, a senior Chris Jenn, a senior Mark Baker, a senior Jamal Brown as their top 4 scorers. You had to go down to their 5th best player. Actually, Funderburk was their 3rd highest scorer. But of their top 5, you had 1 non-junior senior in their top 5 scorers. And that was Lawrence Funderburk, who would eventually be a top 5 overall pick. The other great team in the Big Ten that year was Indiana. And if you look at Indiana's top scorers, they actually had a freshman and a sophomore that were pretty good, Damon Bailey and Allen Henderson, but they were the 3rd and 4th players. Their best player was Calbert Chaney, a junior. Greg Graham was a junior. Eric Anderson was a senior. And their bench was almost entirely veteran players. And then you've got Michigan, who had nothing but, I shouldn't say they didn't have nothing but, freshmen and sophomores, because there were guys like James Voskuhl and Eric Riley and Rob Pelinka coming off the bench, Michael Talley. But they were primarily driven by freshmen. And it's just a different comparison when you're talking about a team that's that driven by freshman players compared against the teams that are a bunch of juniors and seniors back then. Because back then, like nowadays, a team of elite freshmen can whoop up on a team maybe primarily of juniors and seniors, because juniors and seniors now are not top 10 NBA draft picks. Because back then, like the Fab Five that played Kentucky, that was more impressive than a team similarly, a bunch of sophomores beating a team now whose star player's a junior, because now Jamal Mashburn's not your star junior, because the Jamal Mashburn player is in the NBA. He's leaving after a year. So it's still a tremendous accomplishment. And
Also, you got to remember back then the Big Ten didn't have a tournament. It was just regular season. And so, no, I don't think it would have been a fair expectation to ask that team to win a championship the way that it went. They finished third in the Big Ten with a freshman starting lineup in 91-92. And they lost to a Duke team that was, I think, except for Grant Hill, all juniors and seniors. So, and they had a lead at halftime. So I don't think that's fair to say. Their second year in the Big Ten, they finished second. They finished 15-3 behind a 17-1 Indiana team that had a senior Calbert Chaney, senior Greg Graham, senior Matt Novak, junior Damon Bailey, and sophomore Alan Henderson. Like, that was a far more experienced team. And where was Indiana in the last weekend of the season? Where was Indiana that Monday night when the national titles game was getting played between Michigan and North Carolina? Sitting at home. And they got beat by a North Carolina team that was juniors and seniors. So I think it's a tremendous accomplishment. That team did things that we've never seen since and we'll never see again when you look at the context of what they had to go against. And like the Cincinnati team they beat they beat Ohio State in the Elite Eight, not the Final Four. They were in the same region. They beat Ohio State in the Elite Eight, then they beat Cincinnati in the Final Four. There was not one sophomore or freshman in the rotation for that Cincinnati team who had multiple NBA players. Nick Van Exel was a first-round draft pick. Corey Blunt was an NBA, or I think I said NFL, but NBA draft pick. It's just a different animal back then, man. Just a very different animal. What they did was so rare that you've got to look and say, how did you expect them to beat a team that was built of juniors and seniors that were first-round NBA players? It's different today. An elite group of freshmen like that group would probably win a title in the first 2 years now, because they wouldn't be going against a Duke team that had Christian Laettner and Bobby Hurley, because they had already been in the NBA. There's no way Christian Laettner in today's era plays 4 years at Duke. No way. There's no way that Grant Hill plays 4 years in college now. There's no way Bobby Hurley nowadays plays 4 years of college. It's just not happening. So it changes things quite a bit. So I'm going to sell that.
Good deal. Buy, sell, hold from MD alumnus in Minnesota. After some late season struggles against USC and Ohio State in 2024, Christian Gray will take a significant step forward in 2025. I definitely buy this. We've talked a lot about Christian Gray so far this offseason. And they were struggles. I understand why you put them in quotation marks, but they were. I mean, against USC, he gave up like 9 receptions for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's just a struggle. OSU struggles, like I'm more apt to believe that. Now, I think that the way that Christian Gray ended the game makes up for it in a light, but he did struggle, especially post-injury. But this upcoming season, I absolutely believe that he will take a significant step forward. I definitely buy that.
I buy it as well. I think he struggled at times after the injury. I don't think he struggled all the time after the injury. And I know that's not what you're saying. I just wanted to be clear on that. But yeah, I absolutely take a step forward. And it's not even just that, Trev, but he's going to his second year as a starter. Last year was his first year as a full-time rotation player and starter. He did he'll be fine.
Oh yeah.
He'll be fine. And I appreciate the clarification on struggles as well. That was helpful.
Buy, sell, hold from ND Milton fan. If the transfer portal had never existed, you would prefer the roster talent as it naturally evolved without any incoming or outgoing transfers over the current roster that has been shaped by transfers since Coach Marcus Freeman became the head coach.
Sell the heck out of that. Because what happened is Marcus Freeman inherited a flawed roster with some positions that held the program back. If you had to go with the pre-portal era, then you'd have to understand that like Notre Dame would not have had some of the players they had. Now, some of them they would have had still. They still could have had Riley Leonard. They just, because he had to stay and graduate. But they wouldn't have had him even on campus in the spring at all. Then my question is, well, would they have then recognized the injury issues that he had and the resurgeries he needed? Would they have had to wait till the summer to figure that out? So like Notre Dame would have still had, because the way that Notre Dame built the roster under Freeman,
almost every player they got was a one-year guy because he was a graduate. And that's the way the system was before the current transfer portal became a thing. So, but I still reject the notion of it naturally evolved, because we would not have seen the team that we saw this year if you couldn't go to the portal. We wouldn't, because they have been able to bring in the same players that they brought in? Would they have been able to overcome the quarterback deficiencies, the receiver deficiencies, the defensive line recruiting deficiencies that Marcus Freeman inherited? The answer is no, we wouldn't. So I'm fine with the portal the way that it's currently used by Notre Dame, because I think Notre Dame has been able to use it effectively and kind of get that done. So,
yeah, we see it the same.
Give me a second. There we go.
Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame consistently wins recruiting battles against their primary rivals for top talent.
You'd have to. I would have to have a better understanding of what you mean by consistently. Like that. Does that mean more than 50-50? They are winning at a higher rate against their rivals than they have in the past, because they used to never beat Ohio State for anything other than offensive linemen. They've had some huge wins over Ohio State in most years, but I think Ohio State's still beating them for more kids than they're beating Ohio State for. Now, starting to change a little bit, but I would say consistently wins against their USC. They still win more than they lose. Against Michigan, they win way more than they lose. Against Ohio State, they lose more than they win, but they're winning more of them. They win more against Penn State now than they've won in the past. Penn State used to kind of whoop them pretty good. They're beating Penn State more than they have in the past. I would even argue more than Penn State's beating them now, especially the last two cycles and the current cycle. So I'd buy that. But I would need to know what consistent. Does that mean 90%, 80%, 70%? So I'm kind of defining it on my own terms. And are they either winning more, or at least winning like more period, or at least winning more than they have in the past? I would say I would buy that.
Yeah, I think it also depends on what you mean by battles too. Like, I think of when Jacoby Clapper announced his commitment to Notre Dame, and a lot of the graphics were, beats out Ohio State and it's like, okay, well, it was a recruiting battle in that Ohio State
I don't
offered him,
consider
but
that
not.
one. Yeah, I don't consider that one. The way I consider it, Trev, is you were one of the teams that were pushing for that kid.
Yeah.
Like, you beat Georgia for Rodney Dunham and Ebenezer Iwatade.
Yep.
You did not beat Georgia for Javion Osborne.
Yep.
Because they weren't really pushing for him. Right or wrong, they weren't.
Yep.
You didn't beat Texas for Javion Osborne because they weren't pushing for him right now. You did beat Michigan, who's a rival.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's like they beat. That's a great point, Chuck. Some people say, well, he had an offer from Ohio State. They beat Ohio State. Well, no. Just like when Caden Adam, the Caden Harris kid, committed to Vanderbilt, and he had Notre Dame hat on the table. Vanderbilt didn't beat Notre Dame for Caden Harris because he couldn't have committed to Notre Dame if he wanted to. So there's a difference. I do love the fact that Notre Dame is now getting themselves in those top groups where I'm like, dude, guys, they're not getting that kid because he's not a take right now for them. So but it's cool that they're becoming that type of program.
Absolutely. Buy, sell, hold. If Harry Heatstand were coaching, at least one current Notre Dame offensive lineman who is not currently projected to be an early round pick would rise into that category by the 2026 NFL draft.
I'm going to sell that because I don't know of any Notre Dame players that are sneaking up near the draft that people don't consider as potential early round picks. I mean, I'm going to sell this. I don't know that we have enough to know if this is true or not, because none of Notre Dame's players last year went into the draft. I would need to see some evidence that Joe Rudolph his linemen are getting dinged for them not being coached by Harry Heatstand, because the two picks last year were also coached by Harry Heatstand. So Did Joe Walt get a Harry Hiestand boost? I doubt it after just 1 year with Coach Hiestand. Did Blake Fisher? I have no idea. I would need to see some evidence that that's true. But I mean, I don't know where Emil Wagner's being projected, because I think most people still view him as a 27 draft guy than a 26 draft guy. I have seen multiple people project Billy Schrouth and Charles Jagasaw as either day 1 or day 2 picks. That's kind of where they'd be if Coach Hiestand was coaching them. So I'm going to sell this because we just don't have enough data to really know where they would be. And I think most, and the other thing too is if Harry Hiestand was here, he'd be encouraging most of those kids to come back for 2026 season. He would not want Jagasaw to leave. He would not want, because he would know they need more time, and they do. Yeah. So, like you brought up the other day, Trev, if Notre Dame's offensive line comes out and dominates this year, all 5 guys, those could come back in 2026. Mm-hmm. And all but 2 of them could come back for 2027. Because you could try and get a medical hardship for Ashton Craig. I don't know if you'll get it or not because it wasn't consecutive years, but you could try because he took a red shirt and then missed all but 3 games last year with an injury. So I'm going to sell that. We just don't know. Like I could say I'm a Harry Hiestand guy, and I am. And I could take this pick because I'm not a huge fan of Joe Rudolph, but that would be an emotional pick, not one based on data. And we don't have any evidence that Joe Rudolph's offensive linemen aren't going to get as much credit as they would have otherwise. Like that would mean that they're getting dinged. And I don't think they are.
Yeah, I'm going to sell it as well. There's also a good argument to be made that outside of the players who are already being projected to go, a lot of their early first-round projected talent won't even be eligible for 2026. You know, I mean, even if Harry Hiestand were in town. So I'm going to sell that too.
I don't know that Billy Schrouth is a first-round pick. I think he's more of a day 2 pick. Same with Emil Wagner. Outside of Jagasaw, the only what we would consider no-brainer day 1 picks are freshmen or sophomores. Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Buy, sell, hold from Aiden Benami. Notre Dame should try to flip Isaiah Williams for his 6th school before he plays.
No, sell. That kid's committed to literally 5. I thought he already was at 5 schools. High school kid was already committed to 5 different schools.
Nice.
It's ridiculous.
Wonderful. Hit the portal. Buy, sell, hold from Aiden Benami. It is. Sorry.
You said it and then just so quickly moved on to the next buy, sell, hold. That was really well done. That was good.
Buy, sell, hold. It is true Notre Dame will spend $40 million on its roster.
Sell. Not even close. Not even close. It's also not what he said, but it's not close. We had a few super chats, Trev. Let's bring those up now.
Yeah. Super chat from John Emerson. Thank you, John. Appreciate the super chat. What do you guys think of Notre Dame versus Clemson? And they have a trophy called the BYOG, Bring Your Own Guts, and officially make it a rivalry game.
So we had another buy, sell, hold for someone else about it needs a trophy. And my thought is like, it's got to be something that's organic. It can't be just like arbitrary and contrived. There's got to be something behind it. And I don't think every rivalry needs a trophy. You know, especially, I mean, if you think of the ones for Notre Dame, most of them have some bit of a longer history, with the exception of maybe BC, who doesn't have a super long history, but there is the religious connection between the two. But I love this idea. So if somebody's going to say they need a trophy or something, then you better have some kind of idea. I don't know what the logo for that would be, but I love that idea because I think, you know, Coach Sweeney termed that, I believe, correct? But that's very much how Marcus Freeman runs his program as well. And that's what those programs are built on, especially Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. I do. I think, look, let's not kid ourselves. How Dabo Sweeney has been towards Notre Dame since they first played in 2015 is a big reason why this rivalry is going on.
Oh, yeah.
If there had been this contempt, this animosity between the programs, I don't know that this rivalry goes. And maybe they sign it with Miami or Florida State. I think that there is and this was mentioned by both programs. I've seen it mentioned by the Clemson fan base as well as the Notre Dame fan base. there's a healthy respect with most people in the fan bases. And doesn't mean like it's not fear, it's respect. And that's why I want to beat you, because I do respect you. This is a gauge for where we are as a program. And so I like that part. I like that part a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all for it. I would probably rather have and I'm cool with the trophy, let that be known. But I would rather have the rivalry have like a game name than just the trophy. You know, like, hey, it's Notre Dame Clemson, like how Alabama and Auburn is called the Iron Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would like it for it to be something like that. So that I would go for name above trophy, but I think a trophy would also be.
Really cool. Isn't there a trophy for the Iron Bowl?
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I like this, because it's a you could even you could kind of go with this, Trev. It's not so much a bring your own guts trophy, but it's the bring your own guts game.
Called the lunch pail game.
It's the BYOG bowl. Bring your own guts bowl. Like to go along with what you were saying, Trev. Like I dig that. And like, I mean, you know what I think would be awesome? This is like a sledgehammer is like the trophy. Like a little mini sledgehammer, you know what I mean? Or almost something like, you know, I don't say like Monier, but you know what I mean? Like that size of a handle, not like a big sledgehammer that you got, you know what I mean? But like,
that'd be cool.
I think but that's kind of like that bring your own guts. I don't know. It's why it popped in my head.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I like that, John. I like that a lot. The bring your own guts game. Ooh, I dig that. I like
that a lot.
But isn't that kind of how the games are played?
Yeah.
They've always been very physical games. Even the games that weren't competitive have always been very physical games.
What was it after 2018? Like people within the Clemson program said, you know, hey, like if we knew we could get through Notre Dame in the postseason, we knew we would win a championship. Mm-hmm. Wasn't that kind of how it went?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I've said that before. I was told that in between the Notre Dame in between the Notre Dame and Alabama games for Clemson. I was told that. Yeah.
Super chat from Chief Brody. Thank you, Chief. Buy, sell, hold. Freeman and company are de-emphasizing the five-star prima donna, so to speak. Roll out the red carpet type of recruits.
I think you're making you're putting a lot of things together that shouldn't be together. So I'm going to sell this. Just because a guy isn't a prima donna doesn't mean he doesn't need the red carpet rolled out for him.
Mm-hmm.
If CJ Carr, Charles Jagasol type of guy, I'm rolling out the red carpet. They're not prima donnas, but I'm rolling out the red carpet to get them on campus.
Oh yeah.
And so I would buy the fact that they're not looking for the prima donnas. If you just stopped it there, I'd buy it. The roll out the red carpet's the part that I kind of push back on. But and I would also get rid of the 5-star, because not every prima donna is a 5-star.
Facts.
And not every 5-star is a prima donna. So they definitely don't want the prima donnas. But honestly, Brian Kelly wasn't going after a whole lot of prima donnas either. So I mean, there's not a lot of guys that I'd look back, and if we're being honest, that especially later in his career, there weren't a lot of those type of guys, those prima donna types. And so that's what I would say. So I'm going to buy this, because I think the heart of what he's trying to get to is the prima donna part.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of things that are kind of being lumped into there. The prima donna part, because there's 4-star prima donnas, 3-star prima. Like, seriously, I've met some, like, dude, you're not good enough to kind of be asking for the things you're asking for.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm going to buy that overall. I'll buy that overall.
Good deal. I'm with you. Another buy, sell, hold from Aiden Benami. You disagree with recruiting sites when they look at quantity over quality. Yes, this was us 1 to 2 years ago, clapping our hands. We had the first best class.
Not accurate on at least how I represented it, because we would always say you got to finish strong, and they didn't finish strong. Yes, I buy that. I disagree with recruiting sites when they look at quantity over quality. I also I would disagree if you looked at quality over quantity. If you ranked a 10-man class as the number one class because they were nothing but top 100 players, I'd say, yeah, they got 10 top 100 players, but they literally can't put together one side of the ball of starters. So, and when have you ever seen a team that only needed 10 guys? However, if you had a 17-man class for a team that was very young and talented and you landed a bunch of studs, could it end up being the number one class? Yeah, because you met your needs better than everybody else. You had a very high percentage of impact players. That you could have that, as opposed to a team that's got 33 guys in it being ranked number one because you ranked 33 guys.
Mm.
Yeah, I definitely would push back on that. Especially not all the sites do that. That's like, I don't love how Rivals stops at 20, because I think, like, well, what if we needed 25 and we got 25 studs? You're now not counting our last 5 studs. That, but I like what's at the heart of it, which is you're just not going to overwhelm us with numbers and be ranked number one. Early on, like now, USC having 26 kids is going to rank you number one on the rival system, because most teams don't even have 20. So, like, for example, with Rivals having USC number one, they only count USC's top 20 players. But who else has 20 recruits? I don't know. I mean, Notre Dame's at 14. I think LSU's at like 10. There's a couple other teams at 14. There's not a lot of teams that are at anywhere close to 20 right now. So USC is 27. The next highest ranked team, what's funny is the next 2 highest ranked teams are MAC teams. You've got Northern Illinois at 16, Miami at 15, Sacramento State's got 15, Arkansas's got 15, Syracuse has got 15, Penn State's got 15, and then a bunch of schools at 14. So, like, there's nobody even close to 20, Trev, which means even if they were half of those guys are 3 stars, which they're close to being half of them being 3 stars, that doesn't mean they're not good players, because not every 3-star is a bad player in that system. But Rivals actually has more of them. They have 18 4 to 5 stars and then 9 3-stars. I think it's 247 or on 3 has it almost 50-50 between 3 stars and 4 stars. You're going to be number one no matter what, because you have so many more players. But once some of those other schools just get to 18, 19, and 20, they're going to pass you up in the rival system. Not true at 247, because they take more of a look at the volume. So, yeah, overall, I buy that. Quantity should never trump quality. There's got to be a balance between the two, in my opinion.
Buy, sell, hold. You are okay, or you like Nick Saban being in charge of potential NIL, college football changes, etc.
Sell. I like Nick Saban being a voice in this process, but I don't trust Nick Saban enough to be honest with who he is to be able to make changes. Because I could see Nick Saban, if he was in charge, number one, doing some things that are going to protect his legacy, and the guy won't admit that they paid players. Like, how am I going to put someone like that in charge of this process? Well, he didn't really know, Brian. He didn't know what's going on. So I'm going to put someone who was that naive to what's going on with his own program in charge of this whole thing? No, thank you. But does that mean that Nick Saban should have no voice? That I shouldn't listen to anything he says? No, he can bring a lot of wisdom to this conversation without being in charge of it. That's what I would say. And so I have certain things that would be disqualifiers for me to put him in charge of running the whole thing. But I absolutely think that Nick Saban is very intelligent. He has a lot of great ideas. He's very wise. He's been through this to where his voice should carry some weight. I just don't want him being the final arbiter of those changes. That's where I would push back on that.
Buy, sell, hold. You're confident Notre Dame will get a second top-notch running back for 2026.
Buy. I'm very confident they'll get a second top-notch running back for 2026.
Super chat from Lucky Duck 512. Thank you for the super chat, Lucky Duck. Should call it the Great Transcontinental Game.
Hey, man, it's making us money. That's the second time that's made us money, so I appreciate it.
Of course. Of course.
I love it,
They should
Lucky
take a train or something out there. Buy, sell, hold from Coach Bent 574. Aside from the national championship, if forced to choose between either all on-campus or all neutral site playoff games, you would choose on campus.
If I was forced to make that kind of choice, I would probably go It's not as easy of a decision for me, Trev, because part of me likes the idea of the neutral field games. I would maybe say, hey, can we make it to where it's a little bit more balanced and not like 95% of the games are played in the South? Can we get a game in Detroit? It's an indoor stadium. Can we get a game in in Indianapolis or something like that? Can we have an outdoor game? What's wrong with having an outdoor game? It's cold. It's freaking football. But I also like the campus aspect. I just don't know if I like the campus aspect in every round. I don't know that I love the idea of Notre Dame having to go down and play Georgia at Georgia next year when I think Notre Dame's the better team. But Georgia got in because they won the championship. So there'd have to be some things where there's no automatic bids. Just because you won your league doesn't mean you're ranked somewhere. Doesn't get rid of, you don't get seeding tied into winning your league. I'd consider it then. But if I had to go with it, I'd probably actually lean towards selling this because I'd probably lean more towards the neutral site field games. I would. But I don't like either option because I'm torn on that because then I also love the idea of these college towns getting the big revenue drivers for having these games. So I like it the way it is, honestly. I like it the way it is. But if I had to choose, I'd probably lean towards all neutral sites. So I would sell this.
Yeah, I'm selling it too. I'm erred on the side of neutral site games. Cold, I don't have that big of an issue with. I mean, you see NFL games get played at home stadiums in the cold much later than what we saw in the first round of the NFL playoff or of the NCAA playoffs. I will say I think weather cancellations for games could be a little bit more of a thing if that does happen. The Buffalo Bills in the past have had to delay games because they've gotten an ungodly amount of snow, so travel was difficult. It doesn't bother me as much, but I like the idea of neutral games if it gets more spread out. It's not just all in the southeast of the country and Tempe, Arizona. So that's where I'm at. Buy, sell, hold from Coach Bent 574. Because of Notre Dame's unique circumstances with the transfer portal relative to other Power 4 schools, Coach Marcus Freeman is going to be more deliberate with filling up classes in order to keep as much roster continuity as possible. Because of this, we will see more springs like this past with fewer transfers because kids explored their options and chose Notre Dame because it was best for them, not just because they might have been first to recruit them.
You guys are making me think a lot today. I'm gonna sell it because I don't think that he's being deliberate in order for roster continuity as much as it's about an overall philosophy of building through high school recruiting, which is going to naturally keep your classes smaller and create more balance. So I kind of buy that part. But I don't believe that it's then going to mean that we always see Notre Dame have almost nobody transfer. I actually think the opposite is going to be true. I think the way they're recruiting is going to result in more guys leaving because you're going to see kind of like what we've seen, more guys getting passed up by younger players. And that will eventually start to result in guys leaving. Not mass exodus that we see at other schools, but I think we'll just see a little bit more of it. So I'm going to sell it, but I don't sell it with conviction because I think the spirit of what he's trying to say is something that I think is on point.
Yeah.
The overall recruiting philosophy by Marcus Freeman is going to result in them never being the program that just gets ravaged by transfers as long as he's here. But I don't necessarily equate the two things he said together. So I kind of buy the spirit of what you're saying, Coach. I just don't know that I would put them together the way that you put them together. That's all. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's a very good question because I didn't think about that one for a second.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that was a really good question. I'm with you. Buy, sell, hold from Charlie P123. Love the new yearly series with Clemson, but this indicates the annual game with USC is more likely to come to an end.
I buy. I think, but I don't think that Notre Dame is doing this because they know USC is coming to end as much as I think Notre Dame is doing this. And part of it is protection in case it does. I think a big part of this is Notre Dame wants to play Clemson more. They want to have this annual rivalry with a good ACC school. I think there's positives for Clemson to want to do this because it's going to help them make more money as a program. But I also think an additional reason for Notre Dame to do it is that it also is protection in case USC drops them. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think both options were on the table. I buy that it was a factor, but not the only factor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Buy, sell, hold from Curtis Hewitt. Notre Dame and USC will continue playing each other for the next 10 years.
I'm going to sell this because I just don't think USC has the stomach for it. That's why. I need to say something real quick.
Yeah.
So I see the super chat that Salty gave for NY list. I see the super chat that Insured by Big gave for comp memberships. So I have no problem with you guys doing comp memberships, and I love the spirit of it, but I think there's a better way that we can do this in the future. If you guys email me, we can talk about this more because there's a way you can directly gift to Irish Breakdown through our IB store. There's actually like a donation page. And if you want, and the reason you guys are giving $10 is because you know that YouTube takes half of it or Google takes half of it. But if you give directly to the IB store, you don't have to double your money. You just pay $5, and then that's going to cover a membership. So it's about saving you guys money in order to do the right thing for somebody else. So I'll honor it, but just in the future, just you guys shoot me emails. Everybody knows my email address, brian@irishbreakdown.com. And then I'll still reach out to the person in the show, give love in the show. Like, hey, and I get emails about that during the show. So like Salty, if you were to do that, Salty did one for NY List. This is what made me, and then Insured by Big did one earlier that we brought up. But I'll see like in the email, like, hey, just did the donation. And then I can go and see that the email's there. And then I can still talk about it. But this is a way where you guys don't have to pay twice as much to give somebody a $5 comp to membership. You don't have to pay 10. And I appreciate what y'all are doing, but there's just a better way that we can do that saves you guys some money and then helps us out. So again, nothing to say my bad for, nothing to apologize for. I never really thought about this until you guys started doing this recently. So this is props to you guys. This is much respect to you guys for doing that. And we appreciate that. I'm now just saying, hey, let's find a better way to do it to where you guys don't have to pay twice as much to give a comp to membership. That's all. And if you still want to pay for $10 for somebody, then you're basically giving them 2 months of a membership. So we'll still praise it. We'll still talk about it. I'll still bring up your guys' things. I'll still talk to that person. So NY List, shoot me an email at brian@irishbreakdown.com. I'll tell you the steps to get signed up. We had David, I'm sorry. Mazzaro he signed up. He's got a free month membership. So we got him squared away. I love that you guys are doing this and we'll take care of it. So what you're doing is great. I'm just saying, let's figure out a better way to do this where you guys don't have to pay twice as much to do 1 month membership. That's all. So shoot me an email, guys, and we'll do this. But if you go to the board and at the top, you'll see IB Store. If you click on that, at the bottom of that, there's a donation page that you can give money, and that goes directly to us. It doesn't take out the 50% fee and all that other kind of stuff. So, and then we'll do it. So we'll still advertise because what you guys are doing is awesome. We appreciate what y'all are doing. So in no way, shape, form, or fashion am I saying, hey, man, stop doing this. That's not cool. No, I love that you guys are doing this, man. Love it. This just says a lot about our community. I'm just trying to now help you guys in your giving hearts to do it where it's the most efficient financially way to do it. And if you still want to give $10, then I can now give the guy 2 months membership to do it. Like, I'll tell you, like, we had somebody that gave $500 and said, hey, use this. And so that helps me. I've gotten emails from people saying, hey, man, I'm going to have to cancel my membership because I went through a certain situation. I'm like, hey, man, don't worry about it. We got you. We'll cover you for the next 6 months. Stuff like that, because other people are so giving. And sometimes I just do it because I can do it. But Like, we appreciate that, man. You guys are phenomenal. I love this community. It's one of the many reasons I love this community. I'm just saying there's a better way we can do this. And if you just email me, we can get it taken care of and hand it that way, in a way where you guys are, I want to do right by you guys. You guys are doing right by me, and I'm doing right by you. I want to try to do right by you guys as well. So I appreciate y'all for doing that.
By so hold, Notre Dame will still be an independent in 2035.
Bye. I mean, look, the way things have gone, like, who saw all the things we're going through now in 2015? Like, not many. Some did, but not many. I didn't. So, but I mean, I think everything about Notre Dame is they want to remain independent, and I don't know any reason why they wouldn't. So, yeah.
Agreed.
I'm going to buy that. I don't, everyone there's some, everybody has this feeling of it's inevitable because, again, you're believing what other people who don't really know what they're talking about keep telling you. I mean, for 20 years, I've been told this is the reason why Notre Dame's going to have to stop being independent, and it never happens. They're definitely not going to get bullied into being in the Big Ten right now when their program is on fire. So, yeah.
Buy so hold from BJM 41. There isn't one team you would trade all of Notre Dame's defensive players with another team's players, and not just because they are ND guys.
So I love that he said that last part, because in the past I've said I'm not trading them for anybody because these kids wanted to be here. And I've never been comfortable saying, like, I'd trade this guy for that guy. I'm just not comfortable with that. Like, this is a kid that's at Notre Dame. I can now buy that because I can legitimately look at their roster and say there's not another roster that I would trade for if it was in its entirety. There isn't one. There's not a defensive roster. Now, are there some positions like, look, they're better than Notre Dame at D tackle. This team might be better than Notre Dame at D end. This team might be better than Notre Dame at linebacker. Probably not. It's a small list. Maybe no one. This team's not, might be better than Notre Dame in the secondary. I don't think there is, but it's a small list. There's nobody, in my opinion, Trev, and I truly believe this, that they're front to back, their entire defensive roster, starters to depth, is better than Notre Dame's. I don't believe that there is. There was last year, not this year. I really don't think that. Assuming good health.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I buy that. There isn't one. And not because they're Notre Dame guys, because I just think they legitimately have the best roster in college football on defense. Offense is, more to prove, but defensively, I feel very comfortable saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm buying it as well, to the point where if this same group of guys was on a different team, I would say I want that team. Proving the point that it's not just because they're ND guys. Buy so hold, the combination of CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie will have more rushing touchdowns than Kedron Young, Aeneas Williams, Jabron Payne, and Nolan James combined in 2025.
So,
yeah, this is also a sell for me.
Yeah.
Buy so hold, again from BJam 41. Pitt will be Notre Dame's closest game all season. Not only is Pittsburgh a dangerous team, but the game is sandwiched between Navy and Syracuse. The players will have to transition from Navy's offense and their physicality, and then ignore the distractions of looking ahead to senior day and the national hype surrounding Angeli's return to South Bend.
I think we're assuming a lot more about Angeli's hype about Syracuse than maybe we should.
Yep.
I don't know that Kyle McCord got a ton of hype last year, and he led the nation in passing. And he didn't get a ton of hype last year. So I think the hype that will start, if there is hype about that game, it won't start till the week of. It won't start before. And I don't know how good that they're going to be. So I don't know that I think that they're going to be too worried about senior day. Senior day will be an issue during that particular week. I've never known Notre Dame to have any issues with senior day causing an issue 2 weeks in advance for them. I also don't think that the issue of, and I've pointed this out before, but the whole it's tough to rebound from Navy thing has been disproven like a long time ago. And I've said, look, even then it was not an issue of how difficult it was to bounce back. It's they weren't very good teams or weren't coached very well. I just want to point out that this is the result of Notre Dame's week after Navy game in the last number of years. And I'll point out if there was a bye week, 2024, no bye. The week after Navy, they beat Florida State 52-3. Last year, they played Navy, no bye, beat Tennessee State 56-3. 2022, they played Navy, no bye the next week. They beat Boston College 44-0. 2021, no bye. Week after Navy, they went on the road and beat Virginia 28-3. So, I mean, in recent history, if you want to go back to 2019, no bye after the Navy game, they beat Boston College 40-7. 2018, they beat Boston College, no bye, or beat Navy, no bye. They went on the road and beat a ranked Northwestern team 31-21 in a game that wasn't overly competitive at any point in time. So opponents have scored a grand, what does it, Trev, be 3, 6, 0, so 6, 9. The last 5 times that Notre Dame has played the week after they played Navy, they've given up a grand total in 5 games of 16 points. I don't think they're going to struggle to recover against Pitt. And I don't think they're going to be overlooking Pitt to get to Syracuse. I think playing Pitt, it might be the biggest, especially if Pitt's a good team where they would be dangerous. Notre Dame would be up for that game. So, and there's also this notion that like Pitt is, Notre Dame and Pitt. Pitt always gives Notre Dame a tough game, and I still say sometimes we hold on to things that used to be true, still when they're no longer true. There used to be a time when Pitt just gave Notre Dame problems. I mean, just did, man. If you look at like from 2000 on, Notre Dame beat Pitt in a convincing in 01. They beat them by 8 in 02, beat them by 6 in 03. Pitt beat them in 04. Notre Dame beat them pretty convincing in 05, and then Pitt beat them in 08 and 09. Notre Dame beat them by 6 in 2010, beat them by 3 in 2011. Had to have that huge comeback in 2012, and then 2013, Pitt beat them. Since then, Notre Dame beat Pitt 42-30 in a game that was not very close. You had a very competitive game in 2018 where Notre Dame played terrible and needed to come back to beat them. And then your last 2 games, you've beaten Pitt 45-3 and 58-7. Last 2 games. So in the last 5 years, you played Pitt twice and you beat them by a grand total of 103-10. So they haven't been that team more often than not in recent years. I don't know that this team will be any different. I think this is a good Pitt team. I don't think that it's going to be the closest game of the season because of the reasons you mentioned, so I'm going to sell. I think that's the closest game of the season. It'll be because Notre Dame just doesn't necessarily play well. Sometimes you just don't play well. There's not always a reason why you didn't play well. You just don't play well. But I don't think it'll be the closest game of the season, so I'm going to sell that overall.
Yeah, I think there's going to be some more games that are going to be coined the closest of the season. I don't think it'll be Pitt. I also don't think that I don't think there's going to be a lot of national hype surrounding the Syracuse game. I truly don't. I believe there's going to be a lot of Notre Dame fan base hype around it, but to a lot of outlets around the a lot of the outlets that are around the country, Steve Angeli's just a backup that lost the job and left, which has happened a lot this offseason. Now, I don't think it's going to get that much attention from national outlets. I truly don't.
Let me ask you a question, Trev. Remember how we kept seeing all these podcasters on 3 and 2 and CBS Sports? They kept talking about Angeli during the quarterback battle. How many of them have talked about him since he left, other than just that one show where they announced? None, because he's not a story anymore. It was only a story because he was at Notre Dame, and we kept being told he was in. And the minute he left, like, okay, he's at Syracuse now. Nobody cares. We'll talk about the one story, and then we move on, and we don't talk about it again.
Yep.
There's a podcast popping up every other day, somebody talking about Steve Angeli, until he left, and now there's none because it's at Syracuse. Now, if Steve is there and they're running the table and they're like 8-1, 9-1, then it might be a big story, but otherwise, it's not going to be that big of a story.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Michael Parks. Nobody's talking about him being the next Joe Burrow now that he's at Syracuse.
By so hold, it's incredible and shocking that there are at least 7 to 8 games in week 1, August 23rd to September 1st, that are more interesting than Alabama versus Florida State.
Is that true? Do you think there's 7 to 8? So I guess let me look at this, couple things that I would say, Trev. I think that game is actually more interesting than people think. I actually think that's a pretty interesting game. So let me just sell it from that standpoint. I think we're assuming that Florida State's not going to be good, but do we know that? And that's part of my intrigue with Florida State. I'm not arguing that they're going to be good. I'm saying I have no idea. I have no idea if they're going to be good or not because they are a completely remade football team. Like, I have no clue what they're going to be. I look at Florida State, Trev, and I see, like, for example, getting Gavin Sawchuk the other day. That's a good pickup. The kid they got from Oklahoma, I believe he just committed to Florida State, correct? Just the other day. I think that's a great pickup. Their entire offensive line, they got 4 new starting offensive linemen. They got a new quarterback, got a bunch of new receivers. Front 7 is completely remade. They may stink again. They may end up being an 8-9 win team. I don't have any clue, which is what adds intrigue to that game. And Alabama is one of those teams that I have my eye on as I think they're going to be a lot better than people think. And so I think that game's intriguing. But let's look and see, Trev, if there's other games that week that might be more intriguing. Nebraska-Cincinnati, I'd say no. Let's see here. You tell me if you disagree, Trev, with these ones that I'm bringing up. Auburn at Baylor?
No.
Okay, I agree. Georgia Tech at Colorado?
More intriguing than Alabama, Florida State, no, but I am very interested in that game.
Agree. So we'll put that as a maybe. LSU at Clemson? Yes.
Yes.
Tennessee at Syracuse? I'd say yes. Texas at Ohio State? Yes. Utah at UCLA? I don't think so. Do you disagree with that one, Trev?
No, I was going to – you think Tennessee at Syracuse is more interesting than Alabama, Florida State?
For me, yes. Just because I'm so intrigued by what Tennessee's going to look like with Joey there. I always get intrigued by the SEC versus ACC matchups early in the season to just get a gauge on how that's going to be. The Bama one is – there's so many storylines there that as a Notre Dame fan – wanting to see Steve go somewhere else and be successful adds intrigue to it. So this is more from a Notre Dame fan's perspective for me. If I'm a national analyst, no, the game is not more intriguing. But as a Notre Dame fan, for me, it is more intriguing.
Fair enough.
So we can say no to that one if we want to look at it nationally, which is where I think the heart of the question is coming from. I do think Notre Dame Miami is definitely more interesting. So we'll put that one in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here. What else do we got? We've got South Carolina, Virginia Tech.
No.
TCU, North Carolina.
No.
Cal at Oregon State.
No.
I mean, so I'd say at best 4 or 5 games that are more intriguing than Alabama, Florida State. I just think part of this question comes from, and I could be wrong, so be jamming if I'm wrong, man, point it out to me. I think this is coming from the standpoint of people just assuming that Florida State's going to suck again and nobody cares. I don't feel that way. They may. I honestly have no clue how good they're going to be. None. I have no clue.
Yeah,
no idea.
It could go any direction. The only direction I don't see it going truly is both of the extremes. I don't see them making a run at a championship, and I don't see them going 2-10. Yeah. Somewhere in between there.
Would you be shocked if they won the ACC?
If they won the ACC, yes, I would be shocked.
I'd be surprised, not shocked.
Okay.
So we're not that far off, but I'm not like there's no scenario in which they can win the ACC. I'm not saying that. I'd be surprised.
It's fair.
But I don't know that I'd say that I'd be quite shocked because they were, I mean, this is still a team that 2 years ago went 13-1. Like, who's the real Florida State? I don't know. Well, the real Florida State, please stand up. Well, we're going to kind of figure that out this year. I don't know that, and I don't know that we can say Mike Norvell has no clue how to bring a bunch of transfers together on a team because he did it 2 years ago. Did a terrible job of it last year.
Mm-hmm.
I have no clue how that team's going to be, man. None. And I like to think of myself as a relatively intelligent guy when it comes to football. And I've found I think I can get a pretty good read on teams. That's one I'm struggling to get a read on, like at all. I've never had a team that I've evaluated, Trev, that I could see such extremes in. Not to the, like you said, they're not 2-10 again or title, but I mean, could they go 4-8? Could they go 10-2? Yeah. There aren't a whole lot of teams that you look at and evaluate them as that's always possible. Now, who thought Notre Dame was going to go 4-8 in 2016? I was even saying they may bottom out, but when my bottom out was like 7-5, 6-6 was the worst case scenario. Well, 4-8.
Sure did.
Like they legitimately have a team that could go 4-8 or a team that could go 10-2. And I don't know which one it's going to be. And I've never felt that uncertain of a team in my life.
Side note, that'd be a fun show to do over the summer. It's like teams that we just can't get a read on. Like it could go in any different direction. That'd be cool.
Yeah. 5 hardest teams to evaluate this. Trev, can you make a note of that on that little sheet that we have there, buddy?
Yep. Buy, sell, hold from ND for life, paying over $40 million to build a championship roster.
I buy it if you win. If you win, it's worth it because you'll get your money back and then some. Absolutely. If Texas goes out and wins a national title, guys, trust me, that program will more than make up the $40 million that they are spending on it. Believe me. So if you lose, however, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's
like if you say, hey, Brian, would you ever pay $100,000 for a car? I'm like, well, I mean, first of all, I couldn't, I don't have the money for it, but let's say I did. Okay, well, why am I buying it? Am I buying this car because this car has a very, very high rate of lasting for 30 years? Then I'll pay $100,000 for a car. Am I paying $100,000 for a car because it looks really cool and it drives really fast, but it may break down in a year? I'm not paying $100,000 for that car. Like, what are you investing in? And is the payoff for that investment worth it? If the payoff is we win a championship, then it's money well spent. But the risk is if you don't, then you know, because like I could say what I said about cars, but you have no clue. I could buy a car for $100,000 that's really nice and looks cool and drives fast, but it also lasts for 30 years. Yeah. I could buy a car that I think is going to last for 30 years, but nothing is guaranteed. And I get in a wreck in 6 months and total the car. You know what I mean? So it's like, you don't know. So it's a risk reward scenario. It's a, you know, and if they win, it's worth it. So in theory, I buy it because if you feel you have a chance to go out and win, then okay, I get it. It's like with anything. It's like I'm willing to invest this money knowing that there's a potential return on it that could be greater than what I'm putting in. And I think that's true for them.
I buy it if that $40 million is spent the way that Notre Dame and Ohio State did it, because it's sustainable. And I think we talked about this earlier, but I think there's a misconception between what it means to build a championship roster. I think the vast majority of people, when they hear $40 million to build a championship roster, think a lot of that is, well, they just spent $40 million in the portal. And I think that's incorrect. So if the $40 million is going to that, I would sell it. But if it's done the right way, or seemingly the right way that we've seen with Ohio State, what Notre Dame has done, then I buy it. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm at with that one. Buy, sell, hold on Quinn Ewers being a more viable option at quarterback this year than CJ or Kenny.
So why is this being brought up again?
I don't know.
And I'm not talking about from ND for life, because I believe he's responding to this. Is all of a sudden people are writing articles again about Notre Dame. Look, not a single Notre Dame coach went after Quinn Ewers. He was not going to come to Notre Dame. None of the coaches wanted him, and not because of Quinn Ewers specifically, because none of the coaches wanted a portal quarterback. Were there people in one of the funds, or was there maybe someone in the recruiting office that was maybe reaching out? Maybe. But I can assure you, even if those people would have gone to the Notre Dame coach and said, hey, I think we get Quinn Ewers for X amount of dollars, they'd have said, no. Take that money and use it to make sure that Jaden Greathouse and Jeremiah Love and Leonard Moore stay. We like our quarterbacks. So and to do it for 1 year, because here's the thing. props to Kenny Minchie and CJ Carr for both staying, knowing they're not promised a starting job. I highly, highly doubt that both of them would have come back if they had gone out and got another portal quarterback. Because what you're saying to them is, I don't believe in you. And how do I know that you're going to believe in me next year? I was cool with it last year, but not again. So, yeah. So I'm gonna sell the heck out of that. It was not a thing. And he would not have been better. I don't believe he would have been better. It's not a guarantee he would have even finished a whole season, because I believe the next time he plays a whole season will be the first time he plays a whole season where he didn't miss games, because he missed games this year because of injury. And Arch stepped in. He missed games the year before because of injury. And Malik Murphy stepped in. I don't believe he's played a whole season yet, has he?
No, not to my knowledge.
So, no.
I just want to know what is it that Quinn Ewers showed everybody for him to be this?
Yeah.
I mean, it was reflected
name.
On where he got drafted.
Yeah.
I mean, look, man.
So apparently, Trev, there was an article that somebody wrote that's popped up about this, and that's why it's being brought up. So again, my pushback is not towards ND for life. I understand, there's a response to this, but it's clickbait, Trev. That's what this whole business is turning into. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. It gets people to click on it, because people are click on it because they're intrigued, or they're going to click on it because they're mad, or they don't like it, or they're enraged, and it clicks. And what you have to understand is there's a lot of sites out there. There's a lot of companies out there that don't care about putting something accurate out. They want to feed on your emotions, because emotions result in clicks, and emotion results in eyeballs. There are things we could do that would make our show far more popular. There are things we could do that make our website far more popular, but we're not going to do them because they're not honest. There's no integrity in it. It's just the wrong way to do it. And that's what people are doing, but they do it because it works. And talking about Quinn Ewers to Notre Dame works, especially now post-draft, when there's the discussion of, should he have gone somewhere else to transfer instead of going to the draft because he was a 6th-round draft pick. So, yeah. What were you saying, Troy, before I cut you off?
No, you're good. I was just gonna, like, from a football skill standpoint, like, can anybody tell me what Quinn Ewers has that makes him just this heralded gem? And don't talk to me about, well, he played in the semifinal. No, I know what the team did. What is it that Quinn Ewers brings to the table as a player that makes him this hot commodity? I want to know. And I say it somewhat sarcastically, but I am being serious. It's players like that. You always hear all of these things about, this player should go to Notre Dame because of what? Because of their name? I guess. I just.
Yeah.
I don't.
I've never seen a guy physically regress the way that Quinn Ewers did either. Yeah. He doesn't have the arm talent he had when he was younger. You go watch his film in high school. He doesn't have as strong of an arm now as he did then. Doesn't. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It's almost like, is he the modern day Samson? Cut his hair off, cut the mullet off, and he loses. And the thing is, there's been some games he's looked really, really good. Go back and watch Texas 2 years or Alabama game 2 years ago. He was outstanding.
Yeah.
But you could point to a lot of quarterbacks that have that one game where they were phenomenal. He's a solid player. I think he's a nice player. That's it. He's a solid player on a really good team. He's not an elevator at all. And so I don't get it. Other than, here's what it really boils down to, Trev. You don't know the real reason why? Because he was the number 1 ranked recruit in his class, and everybody said he was remember, he was the guy that 247 said he's the highest ranked recruit we've ever had. It was stupid at the time, but that's where his reputation comes from. If Quinn Ewers would have been a 3-star player, nobody would be talking about this. Nobody.
Well, I mean,
nobody.
Shoot, then let's give DJ Uyunglele a call, see what he's doing, see if he's interested in Notre Dame. What are we talking about?
Why did people still talk about him all the time?
Oh, sure. No, you're right.
Same exact reason. Exactly.
You're right.
Exactly.
Buy, sell, hold from ND for life. Barring injury, Notre Dame will have 3 or more round 1 and 2 draft picks in the upcoming NFL draft.
That's oh boy. I'm going to sell that. will have 3 or more in the first 2 rounds, because I think most of the guys that are top rounds 1 and 2 guys, most of them won't be coming out next year, or I hope they don't come out next year. I don't think that Charles Jagasol is going to come out after just 1 year as a starter. I think Jeremiah Love is in that category. Potentially Malachi Fields, but I still need to see. Like, I love Malachi Fields come Notre Dame. I think he's a heck of a college football player. I don't know that I'd say he's a definite like round 1, round 2 guy yet. I need to see the combine and some different things. It's possible. But if Malachi Fields is a no-brainer first-round draft pick right now, he wouldn't be coming to Notre Dame. He'd be going to the NFL draft. So, because like Trev, you and I have talked about this. People need to understand there's a big difference between a guy being a great college player and a great NFL prospect. They're not always the same. Xavier Watts is a perfect example. There was not a better safety in college football last year than Xavier Watts, but he's clearly not the best safety prospect when transitioning to the next level, because that's the NFL. NFL and college are different games. And so I don't know that a lot of the guys that are going to be coming out next year are first and second round guys as much as there may be third, fourth round guys. It's 27 that I think has a chance to have a ton of first round and second round draft picks.
Yeah.
However, if Notre Dame wins the title this year, Trev, that will change. Because for them to win the title, some of those guys need to have big years. I think Malachi would maybe have a big year. Jagasol maybe is a dominant elite player. Now you're like, well, he started 16 games. He's now got 18 career starts. That's kind of a season and a half. It's early for him to come out, but dude, he's 6'7", 330. He was dominant, blah, 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 blah. He comes out, he's a day wonder. First or second round pick. Boubacar Traore comes out, has 13, 14 sacks, and decides to go pro because Notre Dame won the title. I'm not saying it's going to happen or that he even would get picked that high, but I'm just saying it'd be something like that. I still think that they're like really, really, really high level draft picks are still a year later. So I'm going to sell, but it could be close depending on the season that they're going to have. And let's not kid ourselves. Like, we see guys get overdrafted because they played on championship teams all the time. And I don't mean overdrafted like this guy should have been in round 7 and you got him in round 1. Yeah. I mean, a guy that would have been picked in round 3 maybe goes in round 2. Nobody convinced me otherwise. Any NFL person, no, we don't overdraft guys. Yes, you did, because look at Georgia. Look, part of it is these teams win because they have a lot of great players. But when you're drafting a number 3 tight end over guys that are better freaking players, no. Like, you drafted that guy because he played for Georgia, not because he was this. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's fair. I'm going to hold it because I think it depends on what type of season they have. And if Notre Dame has the season that I think that they are capable of having, I think that you could definitely see this. Because I think there would be some players on the fence depending on the type of season that they would have. And so, yeah, in rounds 1 and 2, I'm going to hold because there could be some significant breakouts this year.
Yep.
So, buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame versus Clemson 12-game series is a win-win for both teams.
Buy. Yeah, and we talked a lot about it yesterday. We need to rehash it again, but I think it's great for Notre Dame because you get an established program as a rival. You're in your base of area where you want to recruit. I mean, there's a lot of wins. You have a potential resume builder, and if it is a loss, it's what we view as a good loss most years. So, and for Clemson, we talked about it. All those things also apply for Clemson, but then also Clemson is now in a league that they're talking about giving you more money, a higher percentage of the TV revenue if you are a team that's getting a lot of TV views. Clemson already is one of the best teams in the ACC in views, but now you add Notre Dame to this thing every year. That's going to help your TV views go up, which means you have a chance to have even more of a greater share of that. So, absolutely win-win for both teams.
Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame will have at least one Heisman winner during the Marcus Freeman era.
I'm going to buy that, Trev. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be this year, next year, down the road. But if Notre Dame's going to be the team that we think it is under Freeman, where they're regularly contending for a title, a team that's going to win a title, they're going to have somebody be a Heisman winner at some point in time. And the biggest reason why I say that is because they're recruiting the quarterback position so much better. CJ Carr, Kenny Minchie, Noah Grubbs, whoever they're going to get in 2027, Blake Hebert, like they're recruiting guys that have a chance to be impact quarterbacks, not just do what you need to do on a really good team. That's the difference. So what do we say and then also we already know about running back. What do we always say, Trev? You got to be one of the best teams in the country, and you've got to be a quarterback or a running back. Well, Notre Dame's recruiting those two positions very well right now. So, yeah, they've increased their odds of having a Heisman Trophy contender and winner, especially if we think they're a legitimate championship contender for the foreseeable future. So, yeah, I buy that.
I've never hoped that I'm more wrong about anything, but I'm going to sell this. Here's why. It's not because I don't believe they have Heisman caliber talent on their team, because they do. They do this upcoming season. I think we're going to start seeing a trend of teams that either don't make the playoffs or are exited very early from the playoffs winning the Heisman, because we've seen that the last 3 seasons. It's because they're going to be able to put up the gaudy numbers. I think programs like Notre Dame, programs like the Ohio States, I think they're going to be a little bit more careful with workload management to prep to play a 14, 15, 16 game season. So let's call it what it is. The Heisman Trophy Award is it's a statistics award.
To a degree, for sure.
And, you go back, you think of 22, Caleb Williams, they didn't make the playoffs, but he had to play in every single game because their defense wasn't that great. And he put up the numbers to do it. In 23, same thing with Jaden Daniels. Defense, not great. Put up a lot of gaudy numbers. It was fantastic to watch, but they were, 9-3, didn't make the playoffs. This last season, Travis Hunter, they didn't even make their conference championship game, but he played on both offense and defense. I mean, I'm kind of just looking based off of what the trends say. I think it will carry a lot of – I still think it would carry a lot of weight. And I could be wrong because, Jeremiah Smith could very well go out and win the Heisman Trophy this year, and Ohio State could make a playoff run. But I think that's going to be tough.
My pushback would be a couple things, Trev. Number one, I do think that you're making a great point. I think that Heisman voters will eventually evolve to fit that reality. I do. Number two, I don't know that the most recent national champions have had marquee players at those positions either. Ohio State didn't have that guy at running back or quarterback this year. Part of that is, to your point, why did Ohio State not have a running back do that? Because they were splitting carries between 2 guys. But if C.J. Stroud would have been the quarterback on this Ohio State team and put up the same numbers that Will Howard did, he probably wins the Heisman Trophy. You look at in 23, Michigan didn't have that guy at either position. They were a team that won on defense. 22, Georgia didn't have an elite running back, and Stetson Bennett's not a Heisman guy. 21, same thing. So I would argue part of that is because the teams that have been winning titles haven't had that quarterback, haven't had that player.
It's fair.
You go back to 2021, I could say, well, hey, the national runners-up guy won the Heisman. Yeah, because he almost passed for almost 5,000 yards. So it doesn't really make that case. So I think between the evolution of things, but I also say Mike Denbrock is the OC of that LSU guy that won the Heisman Trophy.
Sure.
So you say, well, but he's there. Well, then the counter that you would then make is, yeah, but they needed to put up those numbers. And Brian, you've said they won't put up those numbers in Notre Dame because they don't need to. And I say, yes, but there's a happy medium. If CJ Carr, let's say in 2026, goes out there and throws for 3,900 yards in the regular season and 38 touchdowns, and Notre Dame is just smacking everybody, and they're the number 1 team in the country, I don't care that some guy from, this 9-3 team threw for 1,000 yards more. You're going to see a lot of love be given to CJ Carr, even though that's kind of where I'm coming from.
That's fair.
So I think it's sort of I get your point. I just would say, who was the really good running back or quarterback that should have won on those good teams in the past few years compared to what we've seen in the past? But I just feel, I've always felt, when Notre Dame is good, the media loves to hype Notre Dame up because it results in that. And it's the same thing for the Heisman.
Sure.
It's like I said, we're not that long ago from frickin' Ian Book finishing 9th in Heisman Trophy voting in a year where he passed for 15 touchdowns. Why? Because Notre Dame was good. That's really what it boils down to. It could be tougher at running back, but it also depends on who the running back is. Because like part of it is you're managing the workload for Jeremiah Love because he's not necessarily a guy that's going to be a bulk carrier guy. If Notre Dame had an Ashton Genty type, maybe that might be a little bit different. But your point's very valid, Trev. I just feel like 1,300 yards rushing and 400 yards receiving for a number one ranked Notre Dame team is going to carry a lot more weight than and I point to, we've seen it before, Mark Ingram's title year or a Heisman winning year. There were definitely better backs in the country that year, more productive backs in the country that year, but they didn't win the Heisman.
Sure.
And then there's years when the guy that won it at Bama was because he was put up monster numbers like Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Mac Jones. Not Mac, Devontae Smith. So it just depends. But I think they'll have one. Like, that's my thing. So I think there'll be 1 year in the next 5 to 6 years where it all comes together and the production's there and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Good deal.
We'll see. Be interesting.
Buy, sell, hold from Bobby Frey. There will be at least 2 true freshmen starting by the end of the regular season, not including special teams.
I'll buy that. Just because of the nature of college football. We saw that last year. I would have told you last year, no, that's probably not going to happen. Who would have been the 2 you'd have predicted at this time a year ago?
Oh, gosh.
Maybe Kingston, maybe Bryce Young. Neither one of them were starters. Who became starters? Leonard Moore, who was not in the spring, and Anthony Knapp at left tackle. I think the nature of college football, when you recruit as well as they do at injury comes up, because what Bobby left out, that in the past we've gotten this question, Trev, they usually say not injury related. Well, Bobby doesn't say that. So I could see a scenario where, and I love the fact it says true freshman. I could see a scenario at some point in time where an injury results in Will Black being starting offensive lineman, or James Flanagan starting at tight end, or Dallas Golden starting at nickel or outside, and then Jadon Blair just may end up starting just because he's the best guy at the position. You know what I mean? So I could see it happening. It's like, so I'll buy it from the standpoint of it's possible. I'm not necessarily buying it from the standpoint of I'm predicting it. Is that kind of a middle ground to take on that one?
Yeah.
I don't want to hold and punk out, but I don't want to sell either, because then we're leaving out some potential scenarios. I'll ask you this one, Trev. Would you buy, sell, hold this question if he said not, there will be at least 2 true freshmen starting by the end of the season, of the regular season, not including special teams and not related to injuries?
My answer for both is actually going to be sell, if I'm being honest. And the first part, to answer the question how it is, I'm going to hope sell it, because I really like Notre Dame's starting lineup on both sides of the ball. And I don't want to see anybody get injured. To Brian's point, nature of college football, and I've said this before, if a player can get hurt, they will get hurt. That's something that we saw for Notre Dame's team last year. But I love the talent at true freshman that's coming in, especially on defense. Mm-hmm. But I don't want their emergence to be due to an injury. Like, I love Leonard.
The second one.
But the second one,
because I get the injury one. You are spot on. I don't want anyone in the lineup to not play because they got injured, because I love the lineup. So we agree on that one. What about the second one where it's not injury related?
I think I would also sell it, because I don't know if 2 true freshmen would crack the starting lineup if nobody gets hurt.
I see what you're saying. So you hope sold the first part of it.
Yes.
I took it as you were hope selling both.
Oh, no. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I hope sell
sense.
Bobby Frey's submission, and then I sell your.
I got you.
Yeah.
Because I was like, wouldn't it be good if Will Black was that good, or wouldn't it be good if? I get what you're saying. You're hope selling the injury one.
Yes.
You're just not predicting the second one. Makes total sense. Gotcha.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Gotcha. I get it.
Buy, sell, hold from Tom Lee 75. Notre Dame has a higher upside in the passing game than Penn State. Notre Dame will get close to that potential and have a more dangerous pass game in the playoffs than Penn State.
I buy that. Look, CJ Carr will never have Drew Aller's experience this year, but I think he's a more natural passer than Drew Aller. I think he'll have better weapons than Drew Aller. And I'm someone who likes the weapon. Like, Penn State upgraded their receiving corps. There's no doubt about it. I don't think it's better than Notre Dame still. I don't think Trevor Pena and it's Trenton Ross. What's the Ross kid's first name? Is Is it Trenton?
Charles Ross from USC.
Charles Ross. Okay. And then they got the Hudson from
Kyron Hudson
from USC. It's a good receiving core. I would not trade that and take away the Notre Dame. I would not trade that for Malachi Fields, Jaden Greathouse, and Jordan Faison or Will Pauling or whatever else. I wouldn't. Yep. And I wouldn't trade as much as I like Luke Reynolds a lot, but I'd rather have Eli Raritan this year than Luke Reynolds. And they're both going to be good players. And then I think, Notre Dame, if they needed to, Jeremiah Love could be every bit as good out of the backfield as what Nicholas Singleton is. They just don't use him as much as Penn State does.
Agreed. Yep.
The only area where right now I'd give Penn State an advantage is I have more faith that Penn State's offensive line will protect him better than Notre Dame, simply because they bring everybody back from last year's offensive line that just did a better job of protecting Notre Dame than what Notre Dame's offensive line did last year. I think Notre Dame's line has more potential to be good there, but I just think, and I think Mike Denbrock is a coach that would like to use the pass game more than what Andy Kotelnicki would.
Mm-hmm.
So all those reasons lead me to believe that Notre Dame not only has more upside, but by the time we get to the playoff, we'll have a more dangerous. I mean, they had a more dangerous pass game in the playoff last year when they played.
Facts. Yeah, agreed.
You know what I mean? Like, why did Notre Dame win the game in the second half? I mean, they had some nice runs on that first drive, but it's because they couldn't cover Jaden Greathouse. And Riley Mills made just money throw after money throw on third down in the second half of that game. And Drew Aller couldn't. And Notre Dame's going to have a better passer next year than what Riley – and he may not be experienced in game one, but he'll certainly be experienced by the time we get to the playoffs.
Yep, I buy this as well. Penn State enters the season with the higher floor right now just because of the experience. I don't think that lasts long.
Can I ask you a question, Trev?
Yeah.
Because I agree with your sentiment when you include the quarterback. What's your opinion on that if you take the quarterback out of the equation? If you just talk about the weapons in the pass game for the quarterback, do you then say Penn State has a higher floor? Because I don't. I do. I agree with you when you include the quarterback who's never thrown a pass in college.
Are we including pass protection in that or just the pass catching weapons?
All of it. All of it. Because I think it's a no-brainer if we're just talking about the weapons, right? It's Notre Dame.
Yeah. Yep. The pass protection is kind of what makes me think about it a little bit. I would say that just strictly all weapons involved, gosh, that's so tough. I'd give it to Notre Dame, honestly.
That's fair. I would too, but I do think the quarterback part of it, though, is you have a guy that say whatever you want.
Games.
He led them to the semifinals last year. He didn't do that. They didn't get there in spite of him. Like that touchdown throw he made to Tyler Warren against Boise State was a freaking phenomenal throw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's Tyler Warren's a great player. Yeah, but he put that sucker on a dime in the back of the end zone. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a close one. That's a good question. That's a close one, but I'd give it to Notre Dame.
I don't know that it's going to be all that close by the time we get to the end of the season.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
Because you and I just now were talking about the beginning of the season, going into the season.
Yeah.
I'll be shocked if it's close at the end of the year.
It would not shock me if out of the month of September, we confidently say Notre Dame has a better passing game than what Penn State
potentially
does. Buy, sell, hold from D-Troll Hunter. There are 10 running backs in college football better than Jadarian Price.
So,
yes.
More proven, more productive, sure. But I think in knowing where D-Troll Hunter's coming from on this question, I have a feeling he's responding to the top 10 that came out from Greg McElroy, where he actually gave love to Jadarian, and he talked about him as a rotation guy. I had no issue with Greg McElroy's comments on that, and I understand why he didn't have Jadarian in the top 10. I would still put him in there, though.
Yeah.
Just based on his production and the fact that he stepped up in some big games. Look, Jeremiah Love's a stud, but he got hurt in the third quarter against USC when the game was still close. I think it was, 21-14 or 21-21 at the time. And Jadarian steps up and just takes over, rushes for 100 yards in a half in a game where Notre Dame pulled away. So, and he was a big reason why they pulled away, is because he took that game over in the second half. It's great to have a running back that can step up and play the way he did when Jeremiah either was down or when teams were trying to focus so much on Jeremiah that they kind of forgot about him a little bit. And so, yeah, I sell that because there are not 10 running backs better than Jadarian Price. It just so happens that one of the ones that is on his team.
Fair. Buy, sell, hold. Evan Stewart will struggle in the role as wide receiver 1 at Oregon, similar to his time at Texas A&M.
Well, number one, I think that's a little unfair because wasn't he a true freshman at Texas A&M?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that that's to say, well, he struggled at A&M. They shouldn't have asked him to be a number 1 at Texas A&M. That's my first point to that. But I'm going to sell that. I think he's a good football player. I think he's a senior now. I think he'll be fine as their receiver number 1. Yeah, Tess Johnson did it, and I think he's a more talented player than Tess Johnson.
Yeah,
He's got to stay healthy.
I was just about to say, Evan
Great
Stewart
minds,
just has
baby.
to.
Great minds,
I
Trev.
know, man. I know. Evan Stewart didn't play a single snap in the postseason. That includes the Big Ten title game. I mean, and so health is huge for him.
Yeah, I think last year was the first because he missed a game last year. All right, he didn't play against Ohio State, right? He was hurt that game. Second time. I think he was out for the game against Ohio State. I don't think he played.
In the Rose Bowl, you're saying?
The Rose Bowl, yeah. He played in the regular season game because he torched Ohio State in the Rose Bowl, the last game. I don't think he played in that game.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
He played 3 years where he's never played a full season. That's why I said he's got to stay healthy. That's the only issue for Evans. I don't think Evan Stewart's like the elite 5-star top 10 player they made him out to be. He's still a really good football player. And I still think he's their best receiver, and I think he'll be fine. And I think Dante Moore's the kind of guy that he's going to spread the ball around pretty well, too. He won't have to be like an 80-catch, 1,200-yard guy.
Well, he's also in a
offense either, too, Trev.
Well, yeah, he's in a more pass-friendly offense. Texas A&M, I can't tell you the last time they were a pass-friendly offense. I mean, in recent years,
Jimbo
think
tried to make him a passing team, but he kept recruiting dual-threat quarterbacks and turning them into pocket passers.
Mm-hmm.
Who recruits Brock? Who recruits Kellen Mond and's like, let's turn him into a pocket passer?
Jimbo Fisher.
Jimbo Fisher. Yes, absolutely right.
Oh, man. Buy, sell, hold. Oregon will not finish in the top 20 for team defense in 2025.
They were 15th last year.
Okay.
I'm going to buy that. They lost some really good players from their front. They got some really good guys coming back. Uiagalelei is a really good football player. But I think – and they got some good inside linebackers coming back, but they had a couple key losses. I think teams will have a little bit better read on them. I don't love their secondary. I'll buy that. I don't think they're going to like drop to like 40th, but I could see them like 21 to 25. So I'll buy that. Yeah.
Yeah. With that, gosh, I'll say this. Without doing any research whatsoever, I'm going to sell it strictly off the premise of I don't know if I could name 19 other defenses that I would put above Oregon's right now. I mean, off the top of my head. So I'll sell it on that premise. I know it's pretty lazy, but I know they lost a lot. That is a kind of a standing narrative for a lot of defenses in college football right now.
It's like saying, I don't think Notre Dame's going to be good because they have a first-year quarterback. Well,
yeah. Yeah.
So do a lot of people.
Right.
In the top 25,
like,
yeah.
You know, it's like, well, Notre Dame's receiving core is made mostly of transfers. It's like, well, if you're not a Buckeye or a Roll Tide guy, that's kind of your narrative.
And even their receiving core has got a huge boost from a transfer.
Mm-hmm.
And Isaiah Horton, who I mean, you take him out, they're still going to be good at receiver, but are they going to be as good without that complementary weapon, that big
Yeah. So just strictly off of that premise. Now, I could be very wrong once I start diving into it, but just off that premise alone, I'm going to sell. Buy, sell, hold from Jay Fish. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Team winning a Notre Dame football 5-on-5 basketball tournament. So team 1 is the offensive line and running backs. Team 2 is quarterback, tight end, receiver. Team 3 is secondary.
All right. So for me, it comes down to the offensive lineman against the secondary. I don't think the quarterbacks, tight ends, and receivers, because number one, I'm banning Leonard Moore from playing. I mean, excuse me, not Leonard Moore. I'm banning Eli Raridon from playing.
Oh.
Because Eli Raridon was a really good high school basketball player. But that's also how he tore his ACL. So, sorry, Eli, you're out. I believe Malachi Fields also played basketball, but it comes – so, like, there's some really good offensive linemen. Like, Joe Otting was a really good high school basketball player. Sullivan Absher played high school basketball. I'm putting Charles Jagasol and Gerby Lambert and Will Black in the post and just saying, we're going to play a 2-3 defense, and I dare you to go to the lane. You know what I mean? But there's some skill there too. And then you've got a couple running backs that could run point. But like, there's legitimate basketball players in the secondary. Like Mark Zachary could play Division I basketball at like a smaller school in the MAC. Jadon Blair was a really good high school basketball player. There are some guys, Luke Talich is going to give you some size. So it's not, here's the thing, Trev, it's not like it used to be where your secondary guys were like 6 foot. I have a 6'5" guy in Jadon Blair I'm going to have running up and down the court against those offensive linemen. Good luck keeping up with us. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the secondary. So if I had to buy one, sell one, hold, I'm going to buy the secondary, hold the O-line running backs, and I'm going to sell the quarterbacks, tight ends, and receivers.
I'm going to – well, mine is actually I'm probably going to buy the secondary, hold quarterbacks, tight ends, wide receivers, sell O-line, and running back.
That's because you never saw Joe Otting play high school basketball.
That's fine. That's fine.
His mom actually played college basketball. He's really good. He was really good.
I don't know if one guy's enough to set me over the top with him.
I think Sullivan Absher also played high school basketball, I believe. But yeah, no, I get you.
Yeah,
and it's running backs too now. Did none of those guys play basketball? I don't know that any of them did. I bet you Jeremiah Love's a pretty good basketball player.
I feel like he would either be really good or really bad.
Like you're like, oh, I bet you he's good. Like you draft him number one, like Michael Scott did Stanley.
Yeah.
And he starts dribbling like, oh my God.
Oh.
Like he can't dribble, can't shoot. But he can dunk. Like he's out there like going through a dunk contest, like windmilling it. And you're like, I'm drafting that guy. And then he starts to dribble and he's like,
I was about to say Jeremiah Love is either a dog on the court
like
or
shots like this over the backboard.
Right.
It's terrible.
Right.
But it's Kevin who's the baller. And it's just dropping. You know what I mean? It's crazy. It's a great scene. But I'm going secondary on that one. That's a good one. So yeah, we were very different on that one.
Buy, sell, hold from Irish fan Minnie. While he was always heavily engaged, Marcus Freeman has taken over an even bigger hand in recruiting since Chad's departure.
Sell, I don't have any evidence of that. I mean, he was already pretty involved anyway, as you mentioned, but I don't have evidence that he's more involved now. I don't. So I can't buy that. I mean, I would think that he would, but I haven't seen any evidence of it so far.
Good deal. Buy, sell, hold from Clear Screen 25. Notre Dame's run defense will be better and more stout under Chris Ash than under Al Golden.
I think that's one area where Notre Dame will get better. The question is, how much do they sacrifice in the pass game to get better in the run game? Yep. What's that balance? So I'll buy that. It could end up being a really good thing. Like they're even better. They give up a little bit more in the pass game, but it's not nearly as much as you'd think when you consider how much better they get in the running. It's possible. Certainly possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm with you. Buy, sell, hold. Cookies should be soft and chewy, not crispy.
It depends, man. I got to hold that. It depends on the cookie. Like I love a freshly baked out of the oven, soft and chewy, like you've only let it set for a couple minutes, chocolate chip cookie. But I also love Famous Amos, the little hard crispy ones, I love those cookies. I eat a whole bag of them. It just depends.
Yeah.
It depends.
That's fair. By all accounts, I'm probably going to go cookies when they're soft and chewy. Like I love peanut butter cookies, but the problem is like 4 hours after you get done baking them, they kind of turn into like a Little Caesars pizza, you know? And so it's like, They're amazing when they're, well, I wouldn't call Little Caesars pizza amazing, but peanut butter cookies are amazing after. But 4 hours after they get done baking, it tasted like you baked them a week ago. And so, yeah, but I'd say by and large, I would say soft and chewy for me. Buy, sell, hold from JP is for Notre Dame. Notre Dame playing Clemson every year for 12 years is a net positive for Notre Dame football.
Buy for the reasons we discussed earlier.
Buy, sell, hold the 2025 Penn State non-conference schedule, Nevada, Florida International, and Villanova. They should be disqualified from the college football playoffs for this non-conference schedule strategy.
Well, they should not be They should not be disqualified from the college football playoffs because number one, they still have to play Oregon. They still have to play. I'm pulling up their schedule right now. They don't play. They play Ohio State also this year. They still have to play Ohio State. If they run the table and beat Ohio State on the road, beat Oregon at home, beat Iowa on the road, I don't care that they played nobody in the non-conference. They're still a playoff team.
Yeah.
I would say, however, the fact that outside of Oregon and Ohio State, their schedule is relatively manageable in that they get of their next three teams that they play. First of all, Ohio State and Oregon, you have one at home, one on the road.
Yep.
Okay. But then of your next three toughest games, which in my opinion, and Trev, you tell me if you disagree, is Iowa, Nebraska, and Indiana in no particular order, just kind of the three. Two of those are at home. You get Nebraska at home and Indiana at home, and then you play at Iowa. That's not a very tough schedule. And you're Penn State, and you scheduled Nevada, Florida International, and Villanova out of your league. Dude, that's soft. So should it disqualify them? No. But if they're 10-2 and their two losses are to Ohio State and Oregon, they should get dinged hard when being compared to other teams who are 10-2 that have better wins.
Oh, yeah.
So they absolutely should get dinged. And if they're undefeated, and let's say Notre Dame is undefeated, or let's say Georgia's 12-1, and Ohio State and Penn State's 13-0, I'm putting Georgia as the higher seed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd put Notre Dame as the higher seed in that scenario. So their record has to be taken into account. But if they go 11-1 or 12-0 against that schedule, they're a playoff team, no question. But depending on what other teams are, it may impact. They may not be ranked as high as you normally would playing in that league because of the soft schedule. But yeah, that's a joke of a schedule. So joke of a schedule.
I'll say this, and the reason why I'm selling is because if in 2023 Michigan can have the schedule that they did and also get caught cheating in the middle of that season and still not be disqualified from the playoffs, then I don't think anything will disqualify people from the playoffs. So I'm selling it. But in all seriousness, though, it's a light out of conference schedule. I don't love when teams do that anyways, but they have to run the table. I mean, their three hardest opponents in my mind coming into the season are Ohio State, Oregon, IU. Two of those three are at home. And it's just,
I would argue your next toughest opponent is Nebraska. I have Nebraska and Indiana ranked ahead of Iowa in my top 25, my new up top 25. So they're also at home. You have to get down to team 5 before you get another road game.
Yep. I'm with that. So, yeah. Buy, sell, hold from Berto 2121. There will be at least one NIU type game this year in which Notre Dame struggles, maybe even shockingly loses, but ignites the team as they may make a deep playoff run again.
I'm going to buy that in theory because I have said, as of right now, I have Notre Dame going 11-1. I have yet to kind of come off that. I'm leaning more towards that right now, to be honest with you, Trev, coming off the 11-1 after the spring, but we'll see where it's at the end of the year. And if for them to lose, it's most likely, I think, would be that type of game. I think it would be to kind of go back to the earlier question, a Pitt type of team, a team that you're not expecting to lose to. Like, how did you lose to NC State? You blew out Miami, you blew out Texas A&M, but you lost to freaking NC State on the road in a hurricane. Like, it's kind of like last year against NIU. If they lose, it'll be more of that than it is losing to Miami or A&M. Like that's my point, is they'll have that game where they just They're not locked in. If 2016 Clemson can lose at home to Pitt, then Notre Dame can lose at NC State. That's kind of where I'm coming from. So I buy it as a possibility. I'm leaning more and more towards actually picking them to go undefeated, but I'm just not there yet, Trev. Just not there yet. I need to see how the summer goes and see a little bit more, but definitely leaning more towards that now than I was last summer.
Yeah, this one's tough. Oh man. I'm glad that you said NIU type of game, not NIU type of opponent, because I said this towards the end of the regular season last year. I think those type of losses, NIU, Stanford 22, Marshall 22, I do think those losses are behind this program, because to me, a lot of that was, yes, there was lack of execution, but I think it's because the preparation the week of, it was apparent the team just kind of didn't want to be there. I don't think that's going to be the issue. If they do lose that kind of game this year, it's going to be just overall lacks of execution. I mean, it's hard to go undefeated, man. And there could just be a day where you just kind of throw your hands up in the air. It's like, it's just not their day. CJ or Kenny's off. Receivers are dropping passes. Leonard Moore gives up something. Pass rush isn't getting home. It's college football. There are some days where it's just not your day. But NIU wasn't it's just not their day. And they lost to NIU as they just didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
And so I'm with you, Brian. I'm leaning towards predicting undefeated. I just got to see a little bit more than just spring when a lot of the offense was running a skeleton crew. So, but yeah, so overall, as of today, I'll buy it because I just don't think they go 12-0 yet. But I'm getting to be on the fence.
Did you read the second part?
Oh no, I'm sorry. Buy, sell, hold. If so, that team will be Boise State, Pitt, or Boston College. Picked it.
That part I sell. I don't think it'll be one of those three. Boise State's that's going to be a game where they're going to pay attention to Boise State because I think they're still going to be undefeated at that time. I had to go look at Boise State's schedule real quick, but they were a playoff team last year.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a lot of hype about that game. Those are not the games I'm overly worried about with Notre Dame. It's the game that there's not that kind of hype. BC's a rivalry game. I think there's going to be some hype on that game. Yeah, they play USF, Eastern Washington, Air Force, and App State start the season before Notre Dame. I think they'll be undefeated at that point in time. So I don't think that's a game they get up. They don't get up for. I think Pitt and BC are rivals. I think they get up for those. And look what they did their rivals last year. And some of them were good. Navy was a really good team. They annihilated Navy. They absolutely destroyed, like Florida State in a game that's kind of a rivalry. The USC game, they didn't play that well, but they had a 49-28 lead with a couple minutes left in the game. They never trailed. So and they didn't even play well. Like I said, they didn't play well that game. So I don't know that'll be Purdue. They beat by almost 60. So yeah, and we'll go over this when we break the schedule down of the teams that I could see this possibly happening to. But I don't think it'll be one of those three. But the part of it is you could then pick any other three, and I'm still going to say no because I don't know who they would lose to. They're better than every team they play. They have a better roster than everybody they play.
Yeah.
So, and somebody just asked quickly in the question, Malachi Nelson is no longer a Boise. I think he's a UTEP now.
Buy, sell, hold from IM Tenzin. The new Four Horsemen is the secondary.
I understand where you're coming from. Now is not the time to move the Four Horsemen away from the backfield. No, that was not the time for that.
Yeah.
And that goes all the way back to one of our earliest questions. As good as the secondary could be this year, I'm still riding with the Four Horsemen that go by Love, Price, Young, and Williams. Or if you want to throw Carr in there, because they had to remember they had the quarterback back then, although the quarterback back then did a whole lot more running than he did throwing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still going with the backfield.
Buy, sell, hold. Iowa will more likely make the college football playoff than Illinois.
So I like Illinois more than Iowa. I think their schedule is a little bit more conducive to that as well.
Buy, sell, hold. Chewing gum should be chewed for long periods of time and not just when the flavor is gone.
Depends on the situation. I'm going to sell that because you're definitive about it, and I would say it depends on the situation. So what kind of gum am I chewing? Am I chewing peppermint gum? I'm only chewing that for the breath. I'm chewing that to get that flavor burst. So when it goes away, I'm not chewing it anymore. Gum that I'm chewing during a baseball game, I'm going to probably keep that a little bit longer. Just because it's not so much about the taste, it's about keeping something to kind of keep, me occupied in that regard. So it just depends on the situation, and it depends on the type of gum. So, I mean, look, with all due respect, man, back in the day, you may be too young for this, but when we get that Topps baseball gum, it was getting eaten, but it wasn't staying in there very long. It was not lasting very long, brother. I can assure you that. It just depends. It depends on the type of gum, and it depends on the situation. So I'm going to sell because you made that a little too definitive. Yeah, I could chew some big league chew, man, for a whole game, back in the day, but just depends. So I'm going to sell.
Yeah, I'm selling. I only chew gum for the breath part.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm selling that. Buy, sell, hold from DMND13. Recruiting rankings will get better, more accurate, and less about clickbait money with the On3 Rivals merger.
Sell, because On3 is bought. This isn't a merger. This is On3 buying Rivals and bringing them into their umbrella, which is going to be about clickbait.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't know that it'll necessarily get better. I think it's too early to definitely tell, but I'm going to sell that because I still see it. I don't know that are they going to still have guys like John Garcia and Sam Spiegelman being part of the recruiting process, or are they just going to cover recruiting news and Charles Power still primarily putting that out? I don't know. I would say this. I don't think Charles Power does rankings for clickbait. I've only seen a couple Charles Power interviews or Charles Powers, whatever. And some of the stuff he said, I'm like, dude, you are so wrong on that. But I got the sense of he was being intellectually honest with what he sees. It was his honest opinion. I just think he's wrong. I've never got a sense that he does things for show, for effect, for clickbait, or anything like that. I think On3 as a network does news for that, but I don't think his rankings are done in that regard. I just think he's wrong on stuff. So, I think the recruiting coverage will get worse. So I don't know that it's going to get better though, because if they adopt the On3 format, I think it'll be as faulty as the one before.
Fair. Buy, sell, hold. If Notre Dame created another annual rivalry to go along with Clemson, buy, sell, hold. You would like it. You would like each of these teams to be that annual game. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Oregon, Texas, Texas A&M, Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Florida.
So are we going to do each one? Buy, sell, or hold each one? Okay, let's do it. All
right. Buy, sell, hold Ohio State.
Sell.
I'm selling as well. Penn State.
Hold.
Okay, I'm going to buy that one. Michigan.
Sell.
Buy for me. Oregon.
Sell.
Definite sell. Texas.
Sell.
I'm going to hold Texas. Texas A&M.
Buy.
I don't know where I'm at on Texas A&M yet. I'm going to hold that one too. Tennessee.
Buy.
I'm going to sell it. Georgia.
Sell.
Also sell. LSU.
Sell.
Yeah, sell. I want to buy it just because
we don't know that Brian Kelly's going to be there long term.
True.
What are the odds Brian Kelly's going to be there in 12 years? Well, actually, it'd be 14 years.
That's true. And buy, sell, hold Florida.
Florida. Sell. So Ohio State sell because you're going to play them enough in the postseason. You don't need that for the rivalry. Penn State, I'm holding because I kind of liked that rivalry back in the day when Lou Holtz was here, but I just despise that fan base so much. I've explained my reasons why. Michigan, I'm going to sell. I'd rather see Michigan State or Purdue. I despise that rivalry because I despise Michigan. I despise all the things that they did to keep Notre Dame out of the Big Ten back in the day. I don't want to reward them for that. There's just nothing about Michigan that I value. I get it. I get why people like that rivalry. I just don't care. I'd rather play Michigan State. Oregon, there's no value for Notre Dame to play Oregon, in my opinion, because Oregon's still chasing Notre Dame from a brand standpoint. And Notre Dame playing them, I don't know, again, you're going to play them enough in the postseason. Texas versus Texas A&M. The reason I sold one and bought the other is because you're not going to do both. My age group, Trev, there's a lot more history with A&M than yours. So I understand where you're coming from. Like for my age group, for like me and Sean, we still remember those Cotton Bowls against Texas A&M back in the day. We remember how good they were. We remember the rivalry. There's just more. When I think Texas A&M, I think of my childhood more than I think of Texas. So that's really where that comes down to for me. So there's not a right or wrong answer there. That's why I picked the one that I have. I've always liked the idea of a Tennessee rivalry, just because it's a not a border state, but it's a close border state, and there were some good games. There's not a long history of these two teams playing, but I just think of the SEC teams I value, there'd be that. Notre Dame, Georgia have no history. I have zero desire to have a long-term rivalry with LSU. It would be better for them than Notre Dame. And Notre Dame and Florida have no history. When I think of a long-term rivalry, there needs to be some type of history, either recent or in the past. The only team that I can look at and say that about is Ohio State. But I feel like with them, you're going to get them enough in the postseason. You don't need to worry about if you're as good as you think you're going to be, you're going to play Ohio State a lot over the next decade. Either quarterfinals, first round, semis, or championship game. You're going to be playing them enough. You don't need to get them twice.
Well, and to your point, it's the same reason why Alabama and Clemson, one of the reasons why Alabama and Clemson back in like the 2010s never scheduled any sort of rivalry like that. That could be the newest one. Notre Dame, Ohio State could be the newest, Clemson, Alabama type deal, where really at the start of 2015 through 2020, it was just kind of like, hey, like these are just the two teams that you're expecting to meet at some point in the postseason. So that's why I'm selling that one. Penn State,
Which one was that, Trev?
Ohio State.
Yeah.
Penn State, I bought because I think in certain lights, both programs are on the same platform nationally, like through the media's eye. Because the same thing that people say about Penn State fans the same thing that Notre Dame fans say about Penn State are the same thing, vice versa. Well, what have you won? And each team kind of lists off the things that they won, and they start talking about top 10 records and what they've done in the last X amount of years. And so I like that rivalry. I grew up watching it a little bit. They played each other in 06, 07. That, and I just don't like them. Michigan.
They played each other almost every year from like 1987 to the like mid 90s when Lou Holtz was there. And so like, again, part of that will be the era you came up in. Like that's like, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. Yep. Michigan for me is how I think the older generation views Miami. It's like they don't play for a trophy. It's just two programs that don't like each other. Yeah. And that's what I grew up with. And I just don't like Michigan. And it's for me, when there's a team that I don't like, I just want to beat them. I don't care about TV ratings. I don't care about money. I just want to, for 60 minutes, just want to beat you on a football field. That's why I want that rivalry to come back. And so Oregon, no. For me, with Texas and Texas A&M, I think, again, Brian, to your point, that's a generational thing.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could have seen some of those games. I'm just thinking moving forward, what moves the needle forward more for you, like a win over Texas or a win over Texas A&M? And that's why I had some trouble with it, because we've seen recently like what the needle move for Notre Dame is with Texas A&M, and they were a good SEC team, but they weren't as in the spotlight as what Texas was. And I think Notre Dame, if they played Texas last year, would have beat them as well. And so I think to myself, okay, in 2024, what would have it meant more for Notre Dame? A win over Texas or Texas A&M? The answer would have been Texas. Small sample size, but that's why I didn't really know how to answer it. That's why
part of it for me for Texas too, Trev, is that I do think Texas is a better program than A&M. And you can't get every good program in here on there. You can't play Clemson and USC and Texas and Michigan. And you know what I mean? Like that's kind of part of it too. Where A&M is a little bit more manageable most years than Texas, when you already have Clemson and you already have USC and you already have some of those teams on there. Because again, is Notre Dame and USC going to keep playing? I don't know. I have my doubts, but until that actually gets announced, I'm going to keep working with the thought that they're going to play.
Yeah. And then I think I sold the remaining four, but Tennessee has a compelling argument just because I don't know why, and I've said it before on the show, Rocky Top gets stuck in my head.
It happened to me again the other day.
I'll just be, Lauren and I are trying to go to sleep, and I'll just be like on my phone, just
Yep, it sucks.
Yeah, she hates it. She hates that song. So
yeah,
but
LSU was one you were thinking about.
Just because of the Brian Kelly aspect, and it's just strictly from I would just love to beat him.
I get that. Let's let him make the playoffs once and then send him home packing with a beatdown.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, hold from the Irish Brigade. Certain position groups will never see all starters drafted in the 26 and 27 NFL draft. For example, J.D. Mariston Jack.
Oh, buy. Yeah. I mean, and again, we're not get rid of quarterback, running back, but like, could I see a scenario where Notre Dame has a starting receiving core of a Will Pauling or a Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse and Malachi Fields, and whenever they all come out, they're all drafted? Yeah, of course. Could I see all 5 of the expected Notre Dame starting offensive linemen this year get drafted? Of course. I think the 2015 team would have had all 5 guys drafted if Steve Elmer didn't quit football. I didn't mean that negatively. He retired from football as a junior in college. I didn't mean that as a shot at Steve. He had something else he wanted to pursue and respect that. But had he decided to stick with football, I think he would have been drafted. I don't know where, but he would have been drafted.
Yeah.
2017, I feel if 2017, same thing. If Alex Bars doesn't get hurt, all 5 of those guys get drafted because Robert Hainsey got drafted and Sam Mustipher. No, Sam didn't get drafted either, actually. So he didn't get drafted, right? Yeah. So 4 of the 5. So defensive line wise, the 2018 defensive line had like 4 or 5 guys drafted, but John Bonner didn't get drafted, but he wasn't always the starter. But like they had their entire 2 deep on the defensive end got drafted. Linebacker, secondary. If Notre Dame's starting secondary is Devontae Smith, Christian Gray, Leonard Moore, Adon Schuler, and either Luke Talix, Bronte Johnson, or Jadon Blair, I could see a scenario where all 5 of those guys eventually get drafted, of course.
Yeah.
So they're entering into an era where this is going to become a lot more common. And then, of course, linebacker. I think your entire 2 deep has a shot to get drafted. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but certainly has a shot.
Agreed. Buy, sell, hold. Certain position groups will see all starters and players in the 2 deep rotation drafted in the NFL draft from 26 to 28.
I don't know about 26, 28 because not all of them may be there, but I mean, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, defensive line, potentially linebacker for sure. We just talked about that. Secondary, possible. That one's a lot less likely, but still possible. I mean, Notre Dame's defensive end rotation in 2018, the entire 2 deep got drafted.
Yeah.
I mean, and honestly, if Drake Bowen eventually gets and Jalen Snead get drafted, your entire 2 deep from the 23 linebacking core would have got drafted.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good point. Buy, sell, hold from D. Masak 2. If Riley Leonard had 1 more year of eligibility and he led Notre Dame to another college football playoff appearance, regardless of the outcome in the playoff, he would become a more beloved Notre Dame quarterback than Brady Quinn.
Sell. I don't think he would. He would have had to win it to be past Brady. Yeah.
I think it depends on how far he made in the playoffs. For me.
Yep. Yeah. If he won it all, potentially.
Buy, sell, hold. Penn State under 10 wins this year.
Sell. I mean, we both have them in our top 5. You have them 1. I have them 3 or 4. Yeah, the 10-win team. Could I see them going 10-2 and being a little bit disappointing and losing to both Oregon and Ohio State? Or maybe they beat Oregon, lose Ohio State, and then lose to one of like Iowa, Nebraska, or you know, possible.
Mm-hmm.
Possible.
Then buy, sell, hold. The Notre Dame-Clemson rivalry needs a cool trophy like the jeweled shillelagh.
Yeah.
Mailbag
So this is the one I was referring to earlier, Trev. And the guy we talked about earlier, the bring your own guts one, I referred to this one. This is what I was talking about. My initial thought was like, nah, I'm good. I don't need that. It's like you said, I don't think there was anything like that for Miami, Notre Dame. I don't think there's anything like that for Notre Dame and Michigan. Maybe there was. I don't think there was. That was just good old fashioned hate. Mm-hmm. Well, this is more about just good old fashioned respect, you know. And so but once he said the BYOG thing, I was like, ooh, now I kind of. It just has to be organic. It has to be somewhat natural. And that would be organic because that's a comment he made. You're both programs trying to be there. Sometimes you say something, you're like, ooh, that clicks. I like that. It makes sense. So when I first put this in, I was like, sell. And then when I saw the super chat, because the super chat wasn't entered till we started, I was like, oh, I'm digging that now. So now my opinion has changed on that. We need a BYOG trophy. It's got to be the little mini sledgehammer. Bring your own guts.
Boom. Buy, sell, hold from Lucky Duck 512. With so few guys entering the portal, that will force the staff to make some really difficult choices on playing time, which will benefit the team.
Sure. As long as players handle it well. Yeah, absolutely. As long as communication is good and the honesty is there between the staff and the players and the leadership in the locker room is good, it'll benefit them. But those things can also tear a team apart if you have coaches that aren't being honest, and if you have a lack of communication and you don't have good leadership in the locker room, it can be a problem. It can be a problem.
Buy, sell, hold. USC is on a slow downward trajectory to irrelevance as a mid-tier program if the Big Ten if they do not re-up the Notre Dame rivalry.
I'll sell that. I mean, look, I do think that not having that rivalry hurts USC in ways they don't realize. I think part of USC's identity is tied into the Notre Dame rivalry more so than Notre Dame's identity is tied into the USC rivalry, in my opinion. Because part of it is because Notre Dame has so many freaking rivalries. I mean, who has more rivalries than Notre Dame? Think about it. They've got. I mean, even the ones that have trophies. There's one for the BC game. There's one for the Purdue game. There's one for the Michigan State game. Then they got the Navy rivalry. You've got the Michigan rivalry. You've got the Miami rivalry. Like, you've got all these. What's USC's? Notre Dame and UCLA? Like, I think their identity is tied, and they're in a region where there's just a little bit more apathy about college sports than there is in most of other parts of the country. And I think they need that rivalry and what comes with it more than what. Think about how many Heisman type moments or how many moments that we look back on from those years when they were killing Notre Dame, but how many times we have those type of things come about. Matt Leinart won the Heisman Trophy when he hit Dwayne Jarrett. I mean, that was the year before. But he had a huge game against Notre Dame. But Reggie Bush, I think, in a lot of ways, clinched the Heisman Trophy with this performance against Notre Dame. The big punt return and just the big long runs, and just he was the reason you watch that game. He was the reason USC stayed in that game. Matt Leinart won it with the throw to Dwayne Jarrett, but Reggie's the reason it was even close. Mm-hmm. If you take Reggie Bush off that team, Notre Dame blows USC out in that game. And, you can talk to all highlights and the great plays. He didn't win it because of what he did at Fresno State. He did it because of what he did to Notre Dame. So I think they need it more, but they won't become irrelevant. So, I think you've gone too far, even though I agree with the spirit of what you're saying. They will become less of a national power, national thought if they get rid of the series because, it'll say a lot about what their values are as a program. And I don't think the Big Ten overall is going to do for them what they think it's going to do. I just don't. Can we be honest about something here, folks? And that's a rhetorical question. Outside of the Pete Carroll era, the last 40 years, when has USC been good? Really good.
That was something that I was going to bring up. I think we look at it through a different lens because it's the Notre Dame USC rivalry. But I guarantee if you go talk to a Tennessee fan and ask them what their thoughts are on USC, they're like, it's the Trojans.
Their band does throughout the game's pretty cool.
Yeah, they stab their football field right before they run out or something. It's pretty cool.
Sword.
Yeah.
They don't even do it. That's not even cool. If you're in the South, you're like, dude, that's nothing. Florida State goes out there on a freaking horse with a spear on fire. You guy out there with the Trojan. And by the way, can we remember what the Trojans were? They went extinct because they got beat by the Greeks. They literally are famous for losing. Think about that. That's what Trojans are known for. Why do we know Trojans? Because of the Troy, because of the Trojan War that they lost.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not even as cool as what the Florida State does.
Yeah. Yeah. I like I said, I think we look at it through a different lens being Notre Dame fans because we are familiar with that rivalry. But to your point, outside of the Pete Carroll era, I mean, how many people see USC on their schedule that don't have it circled? I would say the majority of programs besides Notre Dame.
Right.
You know, I don't know, man.
Right. And somebody in the chat said in response to my question, they said the first John Robinson tenure. Exactly. But I said 40 years. John Robinson's last good year at USC was 1979. That was a year after I was born. I'm 47. Well, I'll be 47 this weekend, but like that was over 40 years ago. Like you've had a year here, a year there, but USC's had one good stretch of like really good football, and it was less than a decade long, and it was under Pete Carroll. Outside of that, they've been largely just okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. And the even more ironic part is he was like their fourth or fifth option. They didn't even want to hire him. So they're not as relevant as they think they are.
Nope. Buy, sell, hold. Clemson playing Notre Dame every year will increase Clemson's national relevance as a brand, helping to bolster the ACC in the future.
I buy that. I mean, part of me wants to say, guys, they won 2 national titles. They're pretty big. But no, having a 12-year rivalry with Notre Dame will absolutely bring even more exposure to them.
Yeah.
Absolutely will. As long as Notre Dame doesn't dominate it. That could actually then have the opposite effect. Like if Notre Dame just like wins 9 of the 10 or 9 of the 12, just dominates Clemson. Then it's like, okay, well, the ACC is not that good and Clemson's not that good. And, you know, that actually could hurt them. There has to be some level of Notre Dame wins 8, you win 4, and then like half of Notre Dame's wins are like really close. Or Notre Dame wins 7, you win 5, something like that. Notre Dame just dominates the way that they've dominated USC for most of the last decade, then it doesn't help you.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is coming at a really great time for Clemson because there's a lot of questions. Does Dabo still have it? Is Clemson falling to the wayside? I think this is a really good opportunity for them. Now, to Brian's point, if it goes the same way that the USC rivalry has gone since 2010, probably won't be that great for Clemson. But I love the move on paper as of right now. So buy one, sell one, hold one. Waffles, pancakes, French toast.
I mean, I like all those, but French toast is number one for me. Like well done French toast, like properly made French toast is just really, really good. Pancakes I'm holding. They're good, but, you know, if I had the choice between really good pancake and really good French toast, I'm taking French toast. And then I'm selling waffles. I like waffles, but I don't like them. They're not in the same league as the other two for me. They're just not.
I am buying pancakes. I am holding waffles, and I'm selling French toast.
You don't like French toast?
I like it. I think you're going to hate me for this. I think it's overrated. Like it's good, but like Lauren swears by it. And she's like, French toast is so good. I'm like, it's good. Like, it's fine. I'd rather have a pancake.
I think your mother ruined you. I think she made bad French toast. I think your mom sucked at making French toast. I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. Maybe it's because your mom doesn't know how to make French toast.
Dude, you're going to get me grounded.
Hey, guys, Trev's no longer allowed to use the No. I'm just joking.
Oh, that's funny.
No more mother jokes. I'm sorry, Trevor. That was uncalled for.
No, that was funny. Buy, sell, hold from Lucky Duck. If Penn State doesn't win the title this year, they'll never win one under James Franklin.
I don't think this is sort of that everything has to go right, they'll never be here again type of situation. I think he recruits well enough to they'll have another team down the road that'll be somewhat in the level of this group.
Yeah. Yep.
So I'll sell that.
Agreed. He recruits very well.
Yeah.
Buy, sell, hold. Sark, Lanning, Franklin, and Kelly are all the same coach as of now, but all can change their big moment issues with the title run this year.
I'll buy that. I mean, I think there's varying degrees to where those 4 are, but they're all considered guys that like don't win the big game. I think Sark should be in the same group as those guys. I don't think he's viewed that way though. Like if I'm giving you my opinion, they're all the 4 same. They're the 4 of them, the same guy that can change that narrative if they win a title this year.
Yeah.
But nationally, I don't think Sark is considered that way. Sark, I mean, I see people putting Sark as a top 3 coach. I'm like, based on what? Like,
what has he done that make you say he's an elite coach? I don't get it. I don't get it.
I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
He had a chance to do that this year. Lost to Georgia twice and got beat by Ohio State. And that's some questionable preparation and play calling in both of those games. Those last two games anyway. Preparation in the first one, that team was not ready for Georgia in that game at all. And then last two, they just got out coached by Kirby in the title game, and then Ryan Day in the. I mean, Ohio State didn't even play very well and still beat Texas. Ohio State did not play well in that game, still beat Texas.
And out of those four, especially after this past season, Kelly is in fourth in those.
Right.
Those three other coaches made the playoffs.
Yeah.
And all three of those coaches coached in or won their conference championship game.
Kelly has in the last 3 years, but yeah.
It has. I'm saying based off of last
season. Right.
So.
Yeah. Fair.
Buy, sell, hold from PJC 1122. Over the last 10 seasons and using college production, first and second round draft selections, and NFL production, which program is wide receiver U? Alabama, LSU, or Ohio State?
Alabama's not in it. I mean, if I have to buy one, sell one, hold one, I'd sell Alabama for recent years. I mean, they've had good receivers. Devontae Smith is good, but prior to this past rookie class, I would have said Ohio State. But you could argue that Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas were both better than Marvin Harrison Jr. this past year. Like, let me look up their numbers. I believe that I'm correct on this. Let me see here. Malik Neighbors' stats.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors was by far the best of the three.
And then I think Brian Thomas, I believe, did well this year also. So let me go look at that one. Yeah, Brian Thomas had over 1,000 yards. Malik Neighbors had 109 catches for 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns. And Brian Thomas had 87 catches for 1,282 yards and 10 touchdowns. And I believe Marvin Harrison was like in the 700s. Now, they both have current studs. Like Ohio State has Chris Olave. They've got Garrett Wilson. Like they've got their studs in the NFL. LSU has their studs. I would argue that the two best LSU players are better than the two best Ohio State players. And Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Would you push back on that? Like who would be the two?
No, I'd take it a step further. I think Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are head and shoulders above Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson.
Agree. And now you there was a thought that Marvin was going to come in and be that type of guy, and he may still be.
Yeah.
But because he's talking about, but you throw in Neighbors and Thomas, and they both went for 1,200 yards last year. It's like, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Think about this. Brian Kelly had Jaden Daniels, who I believe won the Rookie of the Year in the NFL. 2 receivers that as rookies had 1,200 yards, and he could not even get to the SEC title game with those in his last year with those guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's just even in the last 10 seasons. That doesn't even include what OBJ and Jarvis Landry did coming out. I mean, I will say an underrated receiver and Archer beat me to it in the chat, an underrated receiver that came out of Ohio State is Terry McLaurin. Plays for the Commanders right now.
Yeah.
He's been balling, man. I will always give credit where it's due. And Terry McLaurin had a really good
5 straight. I'm looking at this now. 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons with the Commanders.
Yep.
So you could say now his touchdown numbers went up with Jaden Daniels, but he was still putting up over 1,000 yards without Jaden Daniels.
Yeah,
it was impressive.
Yeah, Scary Terry's pretty good.
Yeah, I like that.
Buy, sell, hold from MT Irish. This sounds, but is not intended to be negative. Genuinely curious due to some of the injuries and other issues that hit the team and where the perceived draft stock was last year at the start of the season. Also, a testament to the overall strength of the team and the positive outlook for the future. Of the players that went into the draft, only Xavier Watts and Jack Kaiser didn't have their draft position hurt by the end of the season.
I would sell that. I would throw Riley Mills into that conversation. Even because of where he got picked. I don't know that he was going to get drafted any higher than he did by coming back this season. I don't know that he did. I would throw him in that conversation as well. I mean, Benjamin Morrison doesn't count because he couldn't come out. But mean, best chance Howard Cross had would probably have been to come out a year ago.
Yeah.
He hurt himself, but that's not on Notre Dame. That's on him. But I'd sell because I'd throw Riley Mills in there, but I think that's a fair thing to say. I also think you could make the case that part of the reason for that was, and actually I'm going to sell that overall. Riley Leonard would not have been better off coming out last year because he was coming off of a major injury. So I'm selling that one too. Mitchell Evans wouldn't have been better off coming back because he was coming off of a major injury. He would not have gotten drafted in the 5th round last year based on 3 good games and then an ACL injury. So I'm actually going to sell this for a lot more reasons than just Riley Mills. Now that I think through it, I think the only person who's draft stock, in my opinion, again, I'm not a draft expert, that was hurt by coming back was Howard Cross. You could argue RJ Oben, but I don't. Yeah.
Buy, sell, hold. Horses on the field being impractical. For the last offensive play of the Army game, Notre Dame should have lined up 4 of the running backs around Riley for a new iconic image.
That'd have been pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd have been pretty cool. Because Angelo took a photo of the Ohio State game in 2023, and I think it was Audric Love and I think Jabron, and they had that full house backfield look, and she got a photo of that from the side. It looked freaking sweet.
That's cool.
That would have been really cool to line up in a goal line situation, and it's like I don't know that I would have put 4 running backs. I would have put Riley with Price on one side, Aeneas on the other side, and Jeremiah behind him. Some kind of, that'd be sweet.
Yeah.
That'd be really sweet.
That would have been cool. Buy, sell, hold from Tommy Reese's bail money. Biscuits and gravy, French toast, pancakes, eggs are given.
So I got to pick between biscuits and gravy, French toast, and pancakes. I would still French toast number 1. So buy that. I would hold pancakes. I would sell biscuits and gravy. I'm not a big biscuits and gravy guy. I'm not a big gravy. It's because I love biscuits. I'm not a big gravy guy.
Really?
Yeah. Yep.
Taste, texture,
all of it. And it's funny is the only kind of gravy that I really like is the generic KFC least famous recipe. Yeah, I'm not a big gravy. Never have been. Now, my mom, people love my mom and my grandma's gravy. I just never did. Just the taste. Yeah. I'm also I don't love sausage, especially that type of sausage. The only really sausage I really love is the Lynx. Yeah.
I'm buying biscuits and gravy. I'm holding pancakes, and then I'm selling French toast. Buy, sell, hold from Paulie B. Irish. The 2025-2026 roster will house over 6.5 first-round picks in their upcoming drafts.
Love, Jagasol, Leonard Moore, maybe Boubacar, Bryce Young. He said roster.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe CJ Carr, if he's as good as I think he's going to be. So that's 6 right there. Then you'd have to get somebody like a Malachi Fields, Christian Gray, Drake Bowen, Kingston. Kingston would be one. Yeah, I buy it as a possibility. I mean, that's a staunch prediction for a team that hasn't had that many first-round draft picks in the last decade, other than offensive linemen. But yeah, I buy that. I mean, actually, I'm going to easily buy it because he didn't say what draft classes they had to be in. He just said the roster. That's Will Black, Gerby Lambert. Okay, if we're going to talk about the whole roster, we're going to have the incoming freshman Jadon Blair. Talk about the Dallas Golden. Yeah, I mean, talk about next year's incoming class that'll be freshmen in 2026. Yeah, I'll buy that because he didn't say they only can play on those 2 teams. He just said those rosters will have that. So yeah, I'll buy that. The way that I rethought it, I'll buy that.
Sure. And buy, sell, hold. So we got 3 different groups here. So first group, Carr, Fields, and Greathouse. Next group is Quinn Samardzija and Mo Stovall. Third group is Tony Rice, Rocket, and Eilers to group with the rest of this year's roster for the best chance to win a national championship?
Oh, man. I'm not taking Rice and Rocket and Eilers because Tony, I can only go by what they were. And I don't know, like Tony Rice is in running this modern offense, the way that Mike Denbrock wants to run it, I don't think would be as good as the other two quarterbacks. You'd have to have a different type of offense to work for. Like Tony Rice running like Rich Rod's offense would be like so much fun to watch. Like, or Gus Malzahn's offense would be a lot of fun to watch. Mike Denbrock's, I don't know. And then Pat Eilers is like, I love Pat Eilers, and he's been so successful in life. And from everything I've heard, he's a great guy, but he'll even tell you he's not in the same category as an athlete and football players, what Malachi Fields, Jade Greathouse, Jeff Samardzija, and Most Oval were. And as great as Rocket was, he's not so great that he overcomes those other two things. Carr, Fields, and Greathouse, I've never seen C.J. Carr throw a college pass. I can't put him on the same league as Brady Quinn and Tony Rice. Brady Quinn was a prolific player. Tony Rice won a title. So you give me Quinn, Samardzija. Think about this. Give me Brady Quinn at quarterback, Jeff Samardzija at Z, and Most Oval in the boundary with Jaden Greathouse in the slot, Jeremiah Love at running back, that offensive line and that defense. Yeah. I feel pretty good about how this team is going, right? Yeah, I feel really good about it. And we would know the 25 versions of them. If we're talking about where they were going into 2005, we would not have felt that way because we'd have said the same things about I don't know. Jeff Samardzija had a nice Insight.com bowl game against Oregon State, but who's Jeff Samardzija? He didn't even begin that season as a starter. So I'd go with Quinn Samardzija Most Oval, but man, that'd be hard to say no to Rocket. But what's going to be interesting is Paulie B. Irish. If you're listening and you remember this, I would love for you to remember this submission and bring it back to us at the end of the year. That would be really interesting. And kind of see if our opinion has changed at all by the end of the year.
In one show, you've sold submissions with Quinn and Rocket.
It's tough, man.
It's a tough day for you.
It is a real tough day. Y'all are destroying my childhood. You guys know that, right? But that just goes to show I'm going to give you my honest answer no matter how much my fandom might want me to say something different.
Buy, sell, hold from We Are Notre Dame. Notre Dame will have a top 10 scoring defense.
Buy.
Notre Dame will have a top 15 scoring offense.
Buy. You're basically just saying they're going to be what they were last year.
Yep. Marcus Freeman.
I just want to really quick address this real quick, Trev, because I think there's this misconception that Notre Dame ranked in the 40s in scoring offense last year. Notre Dame ranked 10th in college football last year. So by buying this, I'm saying they could be worse than they were last year and still be buys on both of these. Because Notre Dame last year ranked 10th in the country in scoring offense, and they ranked 4th in the country in scoring defense. They could drop 5 spots in both categories and still be, these are both buys.
Lord. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
But the perception is, Trev, people don't realize that about the offense, especially. And they dropped down 2.7 points from the beginning of the playoffs to the end of the playoffs and still finished 10th. Because they were 38.8 at the beginning of the playoffs and then fell down to 36.1, I believe.
It's because they didn't look fancy passing the ball.
That's right.
Buy, sell, hold. Marcus Freeman likes running the score up on teams.
Some teams. Buy. Some teams. I don't think he ran the score up on Purdue. I just think he let his young guys play. If he wanted to run a score up, C.J. Carr might have had a touchdown pass in that game because they were getting close. I think he definitely likes to run a score up on some teams. Yes. And I'm good with that. I'm absolutely good with that. I think you should run the score up on certain teams. You get a chance to beat Florida State by 50. You take advantage because that's not going to last a whole long time.
Well,
you know what I mean? Sometimes you get a chance to just put a team away. You put that team away.
Well, in this day and age of college football, you have to. Teams will drop in the rankings after beating a team by 21 points. But if your win is 28-7, doesn't carry a whole lot of weight when in this age of offense in college football where teams can put up 40 points on the regular, you almost have to. And so I'll say this, I'm okay with it as long as it's within the confines of your offense. If your guys are just better than the other team's guys. That's fine. You're just running your offense. But if you're going and you're already beating a team 45-3 and you come out in the 2-minute because you want to just put more points
You
on the
run
board.
reverse.
Yeah. But as long as it's in the confines of your offense, I don't care, because it's at the end of the day, it's football. Like, stop me. What do you want me to do? Take a knee and just punt to make you feel better? Like,
let me ask you a question, Trev. Do
Yeah.
you view what Notre Dame did to Purdue last year, where Steve was still throwing the ball and Kenny was throwing the ball, as even a couple deep shots, as running the score up?
no.
Okay, agree. If they
No.
came out and ran a reverse or a flea flicker, or like you said, went tempo, then yes, that's running the score up.
I would have said if they did that with all their starters in the game in the fourth,
Right.
like,
Their starters didn't play a snap in the second half of that game. Yeah, if they would have come out and Riley throws that play action or that RPO touchdown pass to Cooper Flanagan, and it's like, guys, you were up 35-7, and you brought your starters back, and you're doing it. No, that's not correct. You put your backups in and you let them run the offense. Those guys deserve a chance to run the offense. Bobby Bowden always said that. People used to give him a hard time for running the score up. He's like, it's not like my starters are out there. He's like, I got the backups in the game. You want me to tell them they can't run the offense? They work hard too. It's my job to have those guys go down and score. It's your job to stop them within reason. Right? Like, that's the point you're making. Like, no, you don't need to be running like a bootleg throwback that against their second team. The other thing about the Purdue game too is a lot of that stuff that Steve Angeli was doing was against their first team defense.
By so hold, Notre Dame will have a player drafted in the top 12 by 2027.
Bye.
Definitely.
That's the next two drafts. Bye.
Yeah. Buy, sell, hold from Paulie B. Irish. Oh, we did that one. Buy, sell, hold from Domer Dale. Although I wish Marcus Freeman could spend his entire career at Notre Dame, I think we all know that's not how the coaching world works. So, buy, sell, hold, Notre Dame's next head coach has worked on Marcus Freeman's staff, past or present.
I mean, I'll buy it simply because that's so far down the road, and there's plenty of options on there of who it could be. I'll buy it, and I just don't know who the heck it would be from outside, because I don't think this will happen anytime soon. So if I had to answer it instead of just hold, taking kind of the easy way out, I'll just say I'll buy it as a possibility. I mean, I know some people have talked about, potentially Tommy Rees coming back. I think that would have been more of a Jack Swarbrick thing, but if Tommy Rees goes out there and becomes like one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL, and Marcus Freeman leaves, and there's going to be more of an attractiveness there. Whether it's looking at if he left soon, could a Mike Denbrock take that role? Could a Al Golden come back and be a head coach? Could Mike Mickens eventually? I don't know. So I'm just going to buy it just because guessing one of the guys that's been on the staff is still a better option than some random coach who we don't know and couldn't identify, because we don't know who's going to even be guys that they would want in whenever we get to that point in time. So yeah, I'll buy that just because of the two options. It's the easiest to discuss.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fair. Buy, sell, hold from walk-on carry-off 78. Coach Freeman, who took a ton of criticism for his play within the offense comment. Leonard, oh gosh.
Regarding Leonard.
Okay. Regarding Leonard, as well as other post-game NIU criticisms, had his most significant growth spurt yet in the next several weeks.
I'd say that's fair. Coming out of that bye, we saw a different Marcus Freeman and a different Notre Dame. And I'd even say we started to see that a little bit in Louisville. Yeah, I would say that's accurate. And I think Marcus Freeman also has he takes to heart certain things that are said about him. Not everything, but certain things that are said about him. I think because you know what? That's a fair thing that's a fair criticism. Let me think about that. I think he grew a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, the team was different. He was different coming out of that bye. I absolutely, that's a great observation. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
Really well done, walk-on carry off 78.
Buy, sell, hold from Domer since birth. There will be 3, 4, 5 different teams in this year's college football playoff compared to last.
I'm kind of taking this as buy, sell, or hold one of them. So I'm going to buy 5, hold 4, sell 3, because I think there will be a lot of new teams this year. I don't see SMU getting back. I don't see Boise State getting back. Maybe Arizona State, maybe. It's not a given Georgia's going to be back. It's not, Indiana's got a shot, but where I have Indiana ranked in the preseason, they wouldn't be in because there'd be conference champs below them that would get in potentially. There'd be a group of 5 team and then, potentially a Big 12 team and then maybe another. They're kind of on the cusp. Tennessee, I don't see being in again this year. So I think there's several teams that between one of the 3 Big 10 teams may not get in. Maybe Indiana gets in, but then Oregon or Penn State or Ohio State doesn't. I think we'll see a bit of a change up this year. I do. I think we'll see I think we'll see 5 teams. I think the higher the number, the more likely it is up until a point. I don't think we'll see like 8 new teams. But of those 3 options, I'm going highest to lowest. Buy 5, hold 4, sell 3.
I like that. Yeah, I like that a lot. Buy, sell, hold. The winner of the Notre Dame Clemson game in the upcoming 12-game series will make the playoffs 9 or more of the 12 times.
I'll buy that, actually. I like that thought process because I think, especially for Clemson, if they beat Notre Dame and play for the ACC title, they're going to be hard to keep out of the playoffs. Very hard. Unless because if they're playing for the ACC and beat Notre Dame, and if they're beating Notre Dame, they're probably good enough to play for the ACC championship. It's not a given. We saw Notre Dame lose to a pretty average team last year, but yeah.
Yeah, especially depending on when this game gets scheduled, because historically it's been kind of at the end of October. It could be one of those where it's like, depending on what the rest of their schedule looks like a win and you're in type deal. That brings a lot of weight to this game, man.
Yep. I think the 23 game was in November.
Yeah, it was.
There's only had 2 games after that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Buy, sell, hold from Wayne Miller. With all the pass rushing talent at defensive end and Viper, Notre Dame should have a NASCAR package like the New York Giants had.
It kind of did that last year. There'd be times where you'd have Bryce, especially early on. There's some snaps we saw Boubacar, Jalen Sneed, and Bryce Young on the field together.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I buy that. I think this year you could even have maybe a little bit more size to it than what you maybe had last year. If Kingston's kind of maybe taking on one of those roles.
Buy, sell, hold from Eye on the Ball. CJ Carr's greatest physical attribute are his eyes and vision.
I'm going to sell that. I think his greatest physical. Well, no, I'm still going to sell that. I think his greatest physical attribution is his hand-eye coordination, his ability to go from here to here. I count that as a physical attribute. I understand, but I kind of think he's not referring. I think he's trying to take his. But I think my eyes and vision are mental things, just like processing. And I think his greatest physical attribute is the ability to know in his head and then really quickly transition into the decision. Like Ian Book, when I say he had struggle processing, it wasn't that he couldn't identify where to go. It was the speed with which he identified where to go. He couldn't do it as quickly. Same with Steve Angeli. He's a smart kid. He knows where to go. Did he always know where to go quickly enough? And then could he throw it then? Because Steve, a lot of times, one of the issues he had is he would see it, then start the throwing. Where CJ has a bit more of an anticipation to it based on what he's seeing. And that's something that's unique and rare.
Yeah.
So I will sell that, but they are very certainly great traits. And then that leads us to the second one, Trev, which is his second greatest physical gift is his mind, which assimilate the data from attribute number 1. So I kind of flip those two things. I think CJ also physical trait is CJ has an exceptional ability to place the ball where he wants it. Like that needs to be in that conversation as well. And honestly, to me, to a degree, eyes and vision are kind of part of the mind. So we might be saying the same thing. We would just describe it differently. But we can't put aside the fact that CJ, and we've seen it in practice, Trev, we've seen the Blue Gold game, his ability to put the ball into really tight quarters is unique and rare. And that's partly why I grade him so high. It's not because he's 6'4", 225, a 4'6" athlete that can throw the ball 75 yards. It's that kid can put the ball into spots that a lot of people can't because of his ball placement and his mind and his ability to process and anticipate. So that's how I would answer that one.
Yeah, fair enough. I was going to sell it because I was going to say I thought his greatest physical attribute was his ball placement. Like his
Yeah, that's a good
ability
one. Yeah, I mean, if you take the mind out of it and the physical trait, yeah. Like take processing and all the mental parts of it. I agree with you completely. It's his ball placement and everything that goes with that. So it's good stuff, Trev. So that, my friend, is it for, let me see if there's any, no super chats. So we are good, man.
Good deal.
Great show today, everybody. Awesome content from y'all today. We hope that our answers lived up to your expectations for how good your submissions were. Very good stuff this week, folks. Very good stuff.
Well, listen, folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. I believe IB Nation Sports Talk is going live today at 5 p.m. But the best way to stay in the now is make sure you have that notification bell hit and you are subscribed to this channel so you know whenever we go live. Before you head out of here today, please be sure to hit that like button. Leave a 5-star review. We'd greatly appreciate it on whatever streaming platform that you watch us on. Share this podcast with your friends and family. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Brian and I will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. to keep covering Notre Dame's offseason, where you have a lot more fun content coming your way tomorrow.
We're going to talk about the fact that Notre Dame still has some things to prove. I don't think they're still getting enough respect that they deserve, the benefit that they deserve, and same for Marcus Freeman, which we will talk about tomorrow. 5 o'clock, IB Nation Sports Talk. Trev and I back tomorrow, 1 o'clock.
Until tomorrow at 1 p.m., that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.